you doing? Good. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. I call the committee meeting for traffic and transportation to order at 6:30 p.m. The members of my committee are Councilor Conti and Councilor Reynolds. This evening, I did call a committee meeting to discuss some business that falls under a second line item in my on my agenda. We are not allowed to speak at this time about any other business that's in front of the council with regards to the potential seasonal restriction on Beagle Club Road. That would be a violation of the public meeting. We've closed the public hearing on that, so we will not be taking any comments. So if anyone is going to make comments this evening, ask questions, it has to be specific. I do have a kind of placeholder for Beagle Club Road on my agenda, and it states that the parking options for Beagle Club Road and that restrictions up to and including no parking. It was new business brought in by Mr. Cooper, what, 4 years ago, give or take? Yeah. So I've invited, there has been a question, repeatedly questions about the feasibility of a parking lot on the Manchester Reservoir property. I have spoken with Conservation. I sat and had a really great meeting with Gary, and he was very kind to put together some details with regard to that and share that with the municipal council. So Gary, whenever you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Parika, for inviting me tonight, members of the Municipal Council. For the record, my name is Gary Arazian. I'm the city's Director of Planning and Development. Manchester Reservoir is to put this up as a property, so we have some reference to 95 Beagle Club Road, and the real estate around the basin or the watershed that we own. So there's not much really that I'm going to work off this, but just as I explained some of the information I wanted to provide in case we had any questions, I could just point to this as a graphic. So, early last week, Councilor Reynolds sent an email to me with a couple of questions. A day or two after that, Councilor Parika also called or emailed. She had some questions. She came out and she met with me. So back in about parking in the right-of-way, parking in Beagle Club Road, parking just to the north of Beagle Club Road, to the property that is Manchester Reservoir, the real estate. So as some of you may know, some of you don't know, when this came up for discussion, I was actually surprised when I went through my records. It was late August, early September of 2014, that I did some recon in this area. Back then with then Mayor Dumas, myself, the conservation agent, the police chief, the water superintendent, and one of his staff. We went out to the area from Clifton Street where that old Max Markman Park is. We approached the real estate from the end of Beagle Club Road, and the then mayor asked if I could pull together a schematic parking lot, a concept plan, nothing over the top, just a fundamental small parking area. So is it okay if I can pass this out?
That would be great. Thank you.
I had this prepared. I'll walk you through it.
Thank you. Sure will. Thank you so much.
Gary, got one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gary, ready that one? So I had this prepared. So it's a little faint, but as you see on the lower left-hand corner, the outline of the turnaround of Beagle Club Road. Yes?
Yep. Okay. Yes, absolutely.
There's a gate there now. I think it's orange. So if you go just to the north of that, and before you turn right, I can start giving a little description there. There's some asphalt there, not very wide. Proposed a turnaround. And then as you go in an easterly direction, well before you get to the levee, we laid out 10 parking spaces. Just want to get a quick, dirty idea of, what we could put there, and want to make it excessive. As you notice, it's not double loaded. It's a single loaded parking lot, so it's just parking on the north side. Reason why I didn't want to do anything on the south side is, I'm sure many of you have been there. There's a great deal of vegetation on the south side, and I suspected that that's not only a sound barrier, but it's also a visual obstruction, so that the residents don't see that far into it, and who's ever hiking doesn't look into the residential area. And I was just concerned that if, I proposed a double-loaded parking lot, that vegetation would be cut down, and it detracts from the privacy. So I just left it as a single-loaded. So I brought this back to the then mayor, showed him it was 10 parking spaces. At the time, I also solicited a proposal from the engineering company for what it would entail for design and engineering, permitting, bid documents, so forth and so on. So I obtained that back in September 19th, 2014, and that's not me. So aside from that proposal or that site plan, it had a project fee. Again, this is for design engineering. I'm going out to bid solicitation for $28,300. That does not include construction. So, and I know that's key. So in anticipation of coming tonight, in order to give the municipal council a complete picture, what I didn't want to do is come tonight, show you that, tell you there's an engineering proposal here with a preliminary plan, but I don't have construction. So I took it upon myself then to call the engineering company about a week ago, soon after I got, again, the inquiry from Councilor Reynolds and Councilor Parika, and inquired about the cost based on this proposal from 2014. So it came with several options, and I'm going to tell you the high and the low, and then we could kind of get into the forensics if you want. The high was $70,000, and the low is $55,000. That bid, or that, I shouldn't say bid, that estimate includes a 30% construction contingency. The reason why it's a 30% is I asked Horsley Witten Group to give me an estimate based on that rather rudimentary plan. So it's not designed out fully. So of course, as you know, the less a plan is designed, the higher the contingency. The more detailed it's designed, the lower the contingency. So it was perfect, made perfect sense why it's such a high contingency. But before you get sticker shock, let's talk about what the 70 and 55 entails. I'm just going to read this verbatim. It's public document. If you like, I can forward this to Virginia later so you can all have it.
That would be great, Gary,
sure.
If you wouldn't mind.
So this is to me, Gary. Repaving the existing driveway to the location of the new gate. If you notice on that plan, there's a new gate at the terminus of the parking lot to the right, to the very right. It only shows one. If we did this, my advice would be we keep two, one where it is right now, and one at the end of the parking lot or the driveway, so that you can't keep driving out, at least for non-municipal vehicles, right? So I would think two, but for purposes of this design, the engineer just suggested one. So repaving the existing driveway to the location of the new gate, adding a new asphalt turnaround, 10 parking spaces, and this is key, with pervious pavers, a bioswale, signs, and a new gate. The approximate cost is $70,000. If we keep the existing driveway and just add the same new features, but keeping the existing driveway as is, it's $55,000. He then goes on to say that the proposal includes pervious pavers. You want an explanation on that, or are we good with that?
Yes, please.
You want it? Okay. Pervious pavers is, it used to be a fairly new concept going back a few years, but it's becoming more of the norm of industry that Think of maybe a 2-inch thick by maybe a foot by a foot brick you have, but it's pervious. So if you put it on the ground and you would take and actually we did it at Riverfront Drive Park. You take a bucket of water and you put it onto this pervious paver, it goes through it like a sponge. So if you could drive, well, I should say, when you drive by Riverfront Drive from Wall Street to Olive Street, where the road turns in to accommodate the on-street parking, there's like a little jog and it goes on for about 800 feet or 900 feet, you'll notice that the texture and color of the pavement where the on-street parking is different from the texture and color of the asphalt, I'm going to call, of the roadway. That's because that's all pervious pavement. So it could actually be a brick or a brick-like stone, or it could be asphalt. So if you were to get a bucket of water and you just go out and just splash it onto that, it just drains right through. The Conservation Commission, depending on the nature of the project, encourages that. It's good. It's good for the environment. It actually reduces the amount of sheet runoff, reduces structures for stormwater management, swales, piping, and all that. So it's a good, what we call low-impact development type of drainage system, but it's expensive. So I said to you, on the high end, it's $70,000. On the low end, it's $55,000. So let me go on now with that. I've explained what a pervious paver is. Gary, note that our sketch, we had proposed pervious pavers for the parking spaces due to the sensitivity of the site, but there are very expensive. If we went with conventional asphalt for the parking spaces, the construction cost would be about $24,000 less. So option one, which I said is 70, would be 46,000, okay, if we went with asphalt. And option two, which I said is 55, would drop down to 31,000. So we have a $70,000 option and a $55,000 option with a 30% contingency. Then we also have, if we go with regular asphalt and not pervious pavers, we have an upper limit of 46,000 and a lower limit of 31,000, again with a 30% contingency.
Can I interrupt you for just one second?
Of course you may.
So for a circumstance, to make that decision, we would have to, as part of this process, we'd have to go through Concom, I would assume, and they would make their recommendation in the planning board and things like that.
Well, there would be a recommendation, so we would have an official, formal permitting process. You'd go before the Conservation Commission.
I don't mean to jump the horse on this,
but... Notice of intent filing with the Conservation Commission, a stormwater management filing with the Conservation Commission, and because it's a parking area greater than 8 spaces but less than 30, it would be site plan review, but it would be an administrative decision, and that entails a committee that consists of, it's in the zoning ordinance, myself, the planning board chairman, the public works superintendent, and I think the building inspector. If it was more than 30, then it would entail a public hearing with the planning board. So we made it so that if it's a smaller one, rather than going through a formal process for 8, 9, 10 parking spaces, the way we wrote the ordinance is it kind of facilitates a quicker review, but nonetheless a review. So it would be what we call a minor site plan review. So at least stormwater review, notice of intent with the commission, and also a minor site plan review by the planning board. The only one that I couldn't tell you right now about is the Zoning Board of Appeals. It could be some other peripheral review. For example, I didn't have them perform a floodplain analysis, so I don't know if any portion of the work would be in a floodplain. If so, that would go before the zoning board for a special permit. If, for example, if we wanted to do, instead of 10 parking spaces, say 12, but within the essential footprint of 10, you could ask for, we could request of ourselves a reduction in the stall dimension, which would also require a review by the zoning board. So I didn't want to necessarily include that because I don't know, so I don't want to overcomplicate matters by introducing permitting by the zoning board. It might not, but it all depends on how we design it, and if so, we would have to go before the zoning board as well. So we have an engineering proposal, again, design, engineering, permitting for $28,300. Again, this is from September 2014. I can't imagine that that's changed that much. So it's not like I'm going to build in some kind of inflation at 10%. Maybe it could be 30, but that's totally acceptable, you know, in terms of the amount that hasn't changed in 3 years.
So just as a quick recap, so the first initial to have the design, engineer, permitting, and bid documents would be $28,300.
As of right now, that's
And
what I have
then
in front
in
of
addition
me.
to that, it would be another $55,000 to $70,000.
So if we then go out to bid, because we
Yeah.
have to go out for bid for this, depending on how we want to build it, whether it's pavers, impervious pavers, whether it's asphalt, whether we want to widen the driveway area, whether we want a second gate, all those variables, that's going to tweak the, I don't know if it's going to be an invitation for bid, probably an IFB. So depending on how we want to build
Down the
it,
place.
that'll all be in the permits anyhow.
Okay, so we're
once the
currently
commission-
at the outlay, at the,
Pardon me?
at the highest bid, at the highest it would be, right now, we're at $98,300.
Yeah, now, let me add one more little variable.
Please do.
So, as I said to you when I first began the conversation, the presentation, I said when we went out there with the former mayor, the police chief joined us. One of the elements that he wanted included into design was remote reconnaissance, cameras. I did not solicit any quote on that because I don't know what the city, because the protocol, well, I don't say the protocol changes all the time. Technology changes all the time. And because I just got this inquiry last week, I didn't have time to go and speak with the chief to see exactly what he wants from me to try to get a quote for tonight's purpose. So the only variable that I don't have, other than the design, the permitting, and the construction, is I know the chief's going to want some kind of remote reconnaissance that's hooked directly with the link to the police department, which we've done with a number of things. The marijuana dispensary, which the council just approved when the local land development, the planning board, zoning board, and Concom approved New England Sports Village. That was another requirement of the chief, so there's a direct link there too. So this is kind of becoming a norm. The same thing with the cantilevered walkway. You know, we're going to put in the wiring for all the cameras there too. So it's becoming the norm. It's the chief. He understands what the issues are. So we would, if we take this to the next step, and however we decide the next step, if we were to pursue this, I would just advise the city council that we would probably then attribute a cost to remote sensing and cameras to the police department. And that I don't know right now.
May I just ask, I'm sure that would you have an idea, like New England Sports Village is significantly larger than this 10 parking spot area would be. Do you know around how much it was for them to input that?
I don't know how much it was for them. It's private. I didn't ask.
Okay.
But it's considerably larger. If I had to estimate, if I had to guide, say somewhere in the range of about $20,000 to $25,000.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay.
So that puts us close to $125,000.
So
For
30,
soup to nuts.
30, if you take the upper, just to get the upper cost, 70 for the construction, and about 20, 25, so you're looking at about 120, 125,000 on the top end.
Sure. Thank you. I believe Laura had a question first, and then Sarah. We'll get to Sarah.
I just wanted to clarify, so the 28,000 was for the permitting?
It's design and design and engineering, Council Dolan.
Thank you.
Permitting, and let me see.
Bid documents.
Topographic survey, subsurface, so let me read these to you, other than the kickoff meeting, which is standard. Resource area delineation, subsurface investigation, topographic survey, design development, permitting, and construction plans and specifications, assistance during construction procurement, and construction administration. So they'd be our eyes and ears once construction's going on to oversee the project. 20,300, and again, I'll be happy to pass this on to Virginia tomorrow. So.
Thank you. Are you all set, Ms.
Yes,
Dolan?
thank you.
Ms. Sarah?
So Gary, when we talked on the phone, we talked about the asphalt and then the pavers as well. We mentioned crushed stone. Was there any discussion about what it would cost for just crushed stone? There were 3 different options.
I just got a
Crushed
quote.
stone would be less expensive,
Yes,
even
it
less
would.
expensive
Than even the asphalt.
than even the
Yes.
asphalt. So it could be possibly even less than 31,000 if
Yes.
we just went with.
I'm just going by the quote that I got.
Yes, I understand. Thank
Yes.
you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Gary.
And again, as a back up to that, it would have to go through Concom
Oh,
and
yeah.
have what their recommendations
yeah.
would be for that and.
It's
things
not a
like that.
recommendation, it's a formal
This is what you
permitting
have to
process.
do, right? It is a formal permitting
do for
process.
everything.
So, right, you're absolutely, Ms. Hall just said, because it's what we do for everything, and it's true.
And
It
just
is
so
what
you
we
know,
do.
even though Horsley Witten Group is our retainer engineer for peer reviews, I would not obviously have them do the peer review. We would have to go out and get an outside peer review to review what Horsley, if we chose them to do the work, so yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Kate, yeah.
Thank you very much. Hi, Gary, thank you.
Hi, Council.
So, this is the first time that these proposals have been shown to the council then, since 2014. We're the first council to see these
Nope.
for the parking lot?
Nope, actually, after I had this done, Council Parika was the only one that approached me and inquired about this, and it's public documentation. I let her know that what I just explained to you earlier, that I went
Councilor
up.
Cooper also was aware of it as the ward
Oh,
council,
okay.
as the ward councilor, he was
Okay.
also made aware of it.
So when I went out and did the recon with, again, the former mayor and the police chief and so forth and so on, Council Parika, doing her due diligence, happened to stop by sometime after that, inquired, and it's public record, and I wasn't about to, not that I would ever conceal it, I said, sure, so I gave her a copy of this, so I know she was, and then if President Cook has it, but yeah, this is the only time I will tell you that I formally come before the.
That's what I was.
This is because I've never been invited before, so to talk on the
If I could follow
topic.
up with that,
Please.
please? It's a fancy parking lot. It's nothing like when people have been talking about a parking lot down in that area. This is nothing like what I envisioned. Because to me, if I lived down there, that's what I'd just be looking at, as a big black top, and it's a parking lot. I envision moving the gate up closer towards the walkway and 6 spots and the forestry department goes in and takes some trees down. Is that a possibility, that in your professionalism, is that a possibility the city possibly could just go in and make a few spots in that area and do the, okay. I was
We would still
curious
have to
about
permit
that.
ourselves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we would still have to permit ourselves, sure.
Right, I understand that, but okay, thanks.
But I will tell you, I hope not
Please,
to.
no?
I don't consider this a fancy parking lot. I think, in fact, this to me is very fundamental. What you're proposing is probably very rudimentary, is just go in, cut down some trees, maybe with the bulldozer, put some pea stone down or stuff.
stone,
Yeah, so I just, if we're comparing, please, I don't think at all that this is a complicated or complex park. This actually, in my experience, is actually very fundamental, so.
But see, I look at it differently, because I look at it as blacktop, and I'm looking out my front window, and that's what I see is all blacktop and a bunch of, that's just what I envision when I see this right now, for the
Okay,
first time.
fair enough.
Yeah,
But to answer your question, yes, we could.
thank you.
So, and just as a point of clarification, I was asked this question earlier. If after this evening, anyone would like to introduce this as new business, that's fine. It would get referred to the administration. And because it would require an appropriation, it would be up to him to make the determination, or the current administration to make the determination what he would like to do, how he would like to move forward, and then send it back down to the council to approve that appropriation. Councilor Blair, then I believe Councilor Dolan, and then Councilor Hall. I'll get you.
Gary, I did stop in and see you, by the way, in case you forgot me.
Okay, sorry.
Right. I vision similar to Kate. I don't think it has to be a blacktop area. I think if you come in with a bulldozer, cut some trees, and get a half a dozen to 10 parking spaces, stone dust it, roll it, you'd need a gate up, you'd still need that further gate, and leave the other gate intact. But that wouldn't be, I can't possibly see spending that kind of money in that area. And I know it's not extravagant, but it is when it comes to dollars and cents. Hey, that could be done, other than the permitting process. We still got to go through that, I understand that. What's fair to the contractors out there is still fair to us. But if you stone dust the parking area, short ways up, that coming off the turnaround, and I'm not even sure you need the turnaround, but if you extended that, they drive up to that dam now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so
When you
there
say, if I
is,
may, just as a point of clarification, when you say they,
Municipal
you
officials.
mean
Water
municipal,
department.
water department. I just for people at home, making sure
Okay.
that,
water department
They're
goes
aware.
up there on a regular basis and takes measurements of the reservoir. So it is passable. I don't think you need an all-terrain vehicle to get up there. So it's a minor widening, smoothing it out, cutting in some parking spaces, and stone dusting it, some impervious material first and then some stone dusting, and a roller that we got at the highway yard. You could make that passable, especially, it's not going to be used in the winter. I would assume I'd shut it off in the winter, snow. You don't want to plow it, you don't want to plow dirt. Because that, not only is it destructive to city equipment to be plowing dirt, but you're going to destroy the road base.
I would assume, if I may, just be all part of the language that would have to be addressed in new
Well,
business.
I personally wouldn't endorse something that was going to be $125,000. If we could do this for 20, 25, somewhere in that area with some city help, then it's a feasible project. I also asked about over on Clifton Street. Did you ever do anything on Clifton Street?
Yeah, we walked from Clifton Street too.
But you didn't do anything like this over
No,
on
'cause
Clifton?
I'll tell you, my immediate reaction when we walk Clifton Street,
Yeah.
that's all WPZ. So we walk down so you come off the road,
Yeah.
you do the hairpin turn, you go down the street. We all got out of the car and we started walking down the long path as we did. And we took a right to start going toward Max Markman. That's all WPZ, Wetlands Protection Zone.
Thank you.
So there is no room up there for
It's
it?
not that there isn't any room. It's all within the protective buffer zone. So we couldn't, forget something like this. I didn't even bother pursuing anything like this. The mayor pushed me, but I said, Mayor, we're not going to get anything approved by the commission on this because it's going to have a lot of disturbance in the WPZ, the 25-foot no disturb zone. So I didn't even bother pursuing that one. So we concentrated this and let me please also state, I'm not advocating this, I'm just telling you the due diligence I was asked to prepare and to present it this evening. So as your planner, I would not come tonight, with all due respect to Councilor Jackson and Councilor Blair, to give you something that I could, like something nebulous, like we could push this here, we get some stone dust and roll it out. That's not what I do. I want to give you the professional upper limit, and then from there, that gives you the perspective, because I'll tell you, if I came in and said that, you're going to then ask me, Gary, what if we get some pavement and we build it and this and that? So I'd rather start from this perspective and work down from that, rather than coming here as though I just thought about it for the 30 seconds to come out here and say, well, we could cut into it with the bulldozer, or get Derek's crew or Dennis's crew cut into this. And I understand that's how we could pursue that. But as your plan, if I just came here, you're like, well, I know that, anyone, right? So I'd rather take this more professional review of it, give you the higher end perspective, and then we could work toward that. So that's why I didn't pursue anything else with,
I would
doing
expect
anything
nothing,
in-house.
I would expect nothing less from you.
Yeah, I
And
wouldn't do
again,
it
it's a
in-house.
matter of, we can, if someone, again, like to introduce new business as it pertains to a parking lot at the end of, on the Manchester Reservoir property, that's a conversation that I would assume would be referred to the administration, and then you can whittle it back from there.
Yeah.
Whether it's this plan, whether it's crushed stone dust, whatever, that has to come from the administration. We can make that suggestion or
Or you
recommendation.
can, maybe those are your permission parameters, is to say, look, here's what we'd like, we'd really like you to consider this as an alternative, and we'll certainly come up with something like that too, so, yeah.
Sure.
It's certainly doable, so.
Counselor Dolan? You all set
Yeah, I think I'm all
for now?
set.
Okay, you can let me know if you need to come back. Counselor Hall?
Sure. Thank you. I'm just, and you probably have all been on the council longer than I have, a few of you on here. I remember this question being asked, and I don't remember what the answer was about the parking lot, but I do remember the question being brought up, like, why can't we do a parking lot? And I really don't remember having this discussion, and I guess that's what we're hearing. I'm wondering why we haven't. That's my question. I guess I'm confused as to why we haven't had that question. Sorry.
President Cooper?
I'll tell you why we didn't have it, because the former administration did not want to have it.
Okay. Fair enough. That's the answer. So I think that this is really important that we're bringing up now, and I really appreciate this. I think this discussion is very timely. But I did have a question. Behind all that, I do have a question. What is it called? Nickerson Woods? Over, there's a few parks that I see going by where, I mean, some of them are
On
right
Richardson Avenue?
Yes, thank you. And they're right on the road there, and they're very, I would say rudimentary, I'm going to use that word. And even though they're not, not trees up in front of them, I was looking at something like that. There's many of those places that I see around the city that seem to be very much in line with nature, if you would. I mean, we're not doing overly asphalt, things of that sort. And I was just wondering how, sort of down the same line.
Because they've come before the zoning board of
Gotcha.
appeals and asked for a litany of relief and understanding that they're nonprofit organizations, their environment. So to keep in line with that, the zoning board has granted the relief from the zoning ordinance. So this, again, as I said to you, complies with the zoning ordinance. Hence, as of right now, without knowing any environmental constraints, i.e. the floodplain, I was trying to minimize the exposure for permitting. Again, if I deviate from the zoning ordinance, how far do I deviate?
Right.
Where do I go with it? So you applied the minimum standards and appeared before the council. So in those instances, but please understand that we've got the records. I mean, I know they've sought relief from the zoning board. That's how come they didn't build the parking lots the way they built those.
But we could do the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
of
that's
course,
something
yeah,
reasonable.
yeah.
I mean, just to picture in your mind what Councilor Jackson
Yeah.
and Councilor Blair has brought up, that's something I'm picturing in my mind, very simply, something of that sort. So we could picture that in our minds as to something we could strive for.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
President Cooper?
Thank you.
So, Gary, at the end of Beagle Club Road,
I'm sorry, Mark.
at the end of Beagle Club Road, if you're heading down the road, on the left-hand side, there was what was private property that was donated to the city. There was some discussion about doing a similar type, as Councilor Hall described, lot on that property, but it was my understanding that the conveyance of that prohibited parking on that property that was gifted to the city, to the
It's
you know
probably,
what I'm talking about?
yeah, it was the Phillips property.
Phillips,
Yeah,
yes.
that's when we bought that. I think that was under the Mayor Robbins administration. It was in excess of 55 acres. It started to get a little expensive because there was some Form A lots, some house lots, so we carved out 3 of those, and I think we bought, I think it's about 55 acres? 50? 50. Was it 53 point? Yeah, right here, right?
Yep.
It's either the 50 acre or the 53.25, I can't tell from here, but it's one of those two. So, yeah, that actually we bought because with not only grant, but I think at the time the city council, not you guys, didn't want to put up the full amount for the share. So Mayor Robbins, I think, spoke with the water superintendent, and we got some money from the enterprise zone, coupled it with the city appropriation to match the state. So because of the parameters with the Conservation Commission and the water department, it just precluded that. So I will make sure, I remember the conversation, there is a preclusion. What I don't want to commit to right now, that's on that left side. I'd rather check first, okay? Because this is all out of memory, okay?
Yeah.
So there is a reason why we went to the right instead of to the left. But let me check that and I'll come back with you. But I know there's a thought process, but you hit me cold, but I do remember those discussions, Mr. President, so.
Diana, did you have a question?
I did. So why did you decide 10 spaces and not 8? Because
Pardon
you said 8
Yeah.
spaces or more qualifies for something, a different permitting process, but 8 spaces or less is a little bit easier or something?
Nope, if it's less than 8, there's no site plan review. If it's more than 8, but less than 30, it's an administrative review.
Because I feel like what Councilor Jackson, Blair, and even Hall are saying is I'm kind of picturing something that's not taking over the neighborhood or I don't know, just a little bit smaller.
The reason why I had 10, the then Mayor Dumas asked, show us 10 parking spaces. That's why I did 10 parking spaces.
So again, this is a starting point, and we can make it more, we can make it less, we can do all sorts of, actually, it's not we that would be doing that, it would be the permitting process that we have to go to, and the engineered site plan, and then the administration would then send down whatever it is their recommendation would be.
Either the administration can initiate it, and I have not spoken with Mayor Haru on this about what we're going to do. I just let you know I'm going to come down today, obviously.
Yeah.
So whether you ask the administration, would you pursue this with pea stone and in-house and not more than 6 parking spaces? And we'll come back to reply to that. So again, I'm just here as one placeholder, a point in time,
Agreed.
just to explain to you what I did at the time I was asked to do this work. So.
And it may reduce the cost, but there will, there is the potential it would definitely reduce the cost,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there will still be a cost applied to that,
Well,
because
of
we
course
still
there's a
have to
cost, but-
engineer it, and we would have to go
This is
through the
top end
permitting
again, as I
process
said.
and everything else. Councilor Kovas. I'll get you.
So if anybody's thinking about introducing this new business and looking to whittle down different aspects of it, the one thing I would encourage people to do is not to cut the remote surveillance and the cameras and stuff like that, because in my mind, the last thing we want to do is throw a bunch of parking spaces out in the woods there, concealed off from everybody, and not have that additional security where there's already been security issues in that area.
Yeah, we have a history.
And I would also suggest that we not remove the gate from the terminus of Beagle, because at night, they might think, people might just think it's a road, especially, I don't know if we're gonna, I can't think off the top of my head if there's a light there, but I'd recommend one, even though it's not shown here, the engineer recommended to relocate it, I'd still leave one there and put one at the other end of it as well, so we'd have 2 gates. So those 2 things I think we should at least kind of hold constant.
I would have to agree with that. Councilor Blair?
Gary,
Yes, sir.
during your tenure as city planner, have we used the Corps of Army engineers at all, any of your projects? Seems to me we used them at Finberg. They come in and did the excavation and the layout, almost for the bubble.
Some of the projects I've worked on have required core permit. I don't ever recall, actually, the one that we came remotely close to was when we were working on the industrial business park, but we didn't. So I guess the short answer is no. So why should I discuss what we were going to do?
I meant the Army Corps of Engineers
Yeah.
coming in with their crew.
Yeah, we
Their
were.
equipment.
Yes, we were, to do some blasting.
We did a parking lot at one time.
I don't remember.
find out
I don't
where.
think I was
For
involved.
some reason, I want to say Finberg Field.
Yeah, I wasn't part of that. I think that was a...
Before you?
I don't remember ever working on that.
But
So
the Army Corps of Engineers did do a project for us, and they were happy to do it. They were asked. And they come in and did the bulwark.
I don't think something like this would trigger an Army Corps. I mean, I haven't spoken with Derek or Dennis or even Mike about this, because there was no point for me to, but I think this is something, that's kind of a,
I just asked if you'd ever,
No.
if you were involved with this.
just permitting, not construction, Councilor Blair.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have anything else to add?
The only thing I would ask is if there's any follow-up you want me to pursue, and if not tonight, you can always email me, but I have nothing else to present tonight, so.
President Cooper?
Just the follow-up on the Phillips property, Gary.
Yes.
That would be
Oh,
it
yeah,
for me.
yes. Okay.
That, and if you would be so kind as to email that
Yep.
as well, that would be great. You can send that to me or straight to Virginia, and she can distribute it to
yeah,
everybody.
okay.
That would be great. Councilor Hall?
Sure, I just want to get it clear in my mind. So the Phillips property is to the left, and this parking lot is to the right. So the Phillips property, if we wanted to stay on the right, wouldn't have any controversy in this, us looking at to the right. Is that correct?
Well, that's not necessarily true. There are covenances there that would have to be adhered to. President Cooper, if you...
So I was asked if the Phillips property could be used
Yeah,
for
if there's
this
any
parking lot.
preclusion.
Gotcha. So you're not
Someone
precluding
approached
it?
me, could we use
Got
the
it.
former Phillips property for a parking lot similar to what's on Holman Street? Right, there's a canoe launch there, there's a big sign there, and I said I wasn't sure and I would find
Thank
out.
you.
So that was the reason for
Gotcha.
bringing
I
it
just
up.
didn't want, it was confusing to me, and I just didn't want anybody to misunderstand that there was a conflict with doing the project down there on Beagle Club Road because of the Phillips property. So, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Councilor Reynolds?
So Gary, if we were to go with some of the things that have been discussed here, which is under 8 parking spaces, 8 or less, when you say it wouldn't require a site review, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, under the zoning ordinance, is what the city has site plan review. So it says that any project that has less than 2,500 square feet of disturbance, or less than 8 vehicles, parking, those are the two thresholds, there's no site plan review. If it's greater than 2,500 square feet, but less than 10,000 square feet, or 8 or more parking spaces, but less than 30, the parameters, it's an administrative review, what we refer to as a minor site plan review, which is done administratively by, again, myself, the planning board chairman, Mr. Denisi, Mr. McDonough, the building inspector, and who's the other one I said? I'm sorry. The public works superintendent.
Okay, so if there
If
was,
it's greater, if it's more than 30 spaces or more than 10,000, that's major site plan review, which requires a public hearing
Sure.
with the planning board.
so if there wasn't a site review, that is something that then, kind of behind the scenes, possibly DPW or whatever, there'd be a discussion then about, no?
All that means, no, I would still review it, only there's no approval process.
Okay,
It still gets reviewed.
that's what I want, okay.
It still we would still review it, but there's no formal decision, there's no certificate of vote, there's no, we convened the meeting on, February, blah, 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 at a certain time, oh, that administrative, but I would still review the plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, that's what I was
Yeah,
asking.
by not having site plan review, doesn't mean just, let's go make it up, we would still develop a plan,
Yeah,
just so.
definitely.
Who's ever gonna build it has some, we have some understanding of what's gonna
Of
get built.
what's gonna happen, right?
Yes.
But it's not formalized?
Yeah, it just doesn't trigger an
Public
ordinance
hearing or any
review.
of that?
That's right.
Okay, great, good to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in tonight. I think it was exceptionally informative. It's
Okay.
there was, we did have conversation about this going all the way back to 2014. It's 2018 now. I remember seeing that and having some very frank discussion with regards to it. And then, again, it's a matter of, it would have to be introduced as new business here on the council floor with, with specs in it on the direction that you would like the administration to go with. And then it would eventually come back down to the municipal council for an appropriation. We don't make appropriations here. So that's, I think this was a great conversation because it's been a hot topic. Anytime we have any discussion with regards to that shall not be named at the moment, it always boils down to let's throw a parking lot in there. It may not actually, you might have the discussion that might not actually solve the problem, because if it's 8 or 10 vehicles, where does the 11th go? Or the 9th one go? But those are conversations we can have at another time. Gary, again, thank you for your efforts
Yeah, my
for this
pleasure.
evening.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns? I call for an adjournment at 7:10.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:10. Thank you very much. I'm not picking up your stuff.
Okay, yeah, don't take my stuff away.
Give it to Sarah.
How are you?
Rick, can I get you some?
You got your water with you? You have a lot to read tonight.
I have water in here. Yep.
Are we waiting to start? Starting by now, are we taking a break?
I don't know.
Signing your life away, Lee?
This is where council had
I just wanted you to look at that quickly.
Further to get to the rest.
Mary Wagon Lane. Are we taking a quick break here, or?
This is gonna go.
Yeah, because it's,
Hey.
Did you want me to sign? I did.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree with all of this. I was looking at this myself.
Okay.
So you do it. And you do what you
Can I just have a couple minutes, Mark?
Like, can we table it, can we do this? I mean, now we have new information, so
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with that, too.
It's a little bit different.
Ready? The meeting of the Municipal Council called to order at 7:18. Please stand and join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I entertain a motion to approve the records of January 2nd, 2018.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion or comment? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, motion passes. Mr. Withers, would you read the notice for the first continued public hearing?
Yes, I will. Continued from the meeting of January 16th, 2018. Public hearing relative to the following loan order. Ordered that $975,000 be appropriated for the cost of purchasing and equipping fire department vehicles.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Seeing none, I'll declare that public hearing closed, and that has already been referred to Budget and Appropriations. Mr. Clerk, would you read the notice for the second continued public hearing?
Continued from the meeting of January 16th, 2018, public hearing relative to the following loan order. Ordered that $731,000 be appropriated for the cost of purchasing and equipping police and public works department vehicles equipment.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Hearing none, I'll declare that public hearing closed. And that has also been to the Budget and Appropriations Committee. We will move on to the mayor's communication.
Okay. Second. A lot of reading. I'm going to put my glasses on. Okay. February 16th, 2018, dear municipal councilors. I respectfully submit a communication from Fire Chief Scott T. LaChance regarding the receipt of a fiscal year 2018 Student Awareness of Fire Education, or SAFE grant, and a fiscal year 2018 Senior SAFE grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts of approximately $8,220. The mission of the SAFE program is to provide fire and life safety education within the community with an emphasis on educating children and seniors about fire and other related dangers. There is no matching requirement for this grant. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve expending such funds in any future grant amendments by the Attleboro Fire Department. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety Emergency Management, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Fire Chief Scott T. LaChance regarding the receipt of $9,500 in Emergency Management Performance Grant, or EMPG funds. Although there is a 100% match, it may be met with a cash match provided by other qualifying municipal purchases related to emergency management. The match will be provided with municipal funds that have been allocated to procure computer-aided dispatch, or CAD software, utilized by the police and fire departments. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve expending of such funds in any future grant amendments by the Attleboro Fire Department. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety Emergency Management, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding fiscal year 2017 fiscal obligations that were not received in time to be processed in the normal fiscal year 2017 business cycle. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to authorize the school department to pay these previous year school bills totaling $1,882.70 as identified in Mr. Furtado's communication. Copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations, please.
For your information, I would like to inform your honorable body that I have made Assistant Water Superintendent Courtney Wunschel the acting water superintendent until further notice. I respectfully submit a communication from Election Office Manager Cheryl Perry regarding the need for funds to cover additional costs associated with a special state primary on March 6, 2018, and a special state election/city debt exclusion/municipal Ward 6 election on April 3, 2018, that were not included in the fiscal year 2018 budget. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $35,100 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to the following: $14,000 to election salaries, $550 to election building rental, $7,600 to election printing and reproduction, $4,000 to account election professional services, $7,500 to account election police, $1,100 to account election supplies, election equipment, $260 to account election POD rental. Upon approval, the available balance in reserve fund for transfer will be $470,298.45. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. Mr. Withers, it's $35,010. I think you said $35,100.
Thank you for correcting me. It is $35,010. Thank you.
Thank you. Budget and appropriations, please.
For your information, I regret to inform your honorable body that we have received the resignation of Constable Walter Chicoine. I know you will join me in thanking Mr. Chicoine for his service to the city. I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Schools David Sawyer regarding the donation of 15 water fillers/bubblers with an estimated total value of $18,000 from the YMCA of Attleboro. A new matter MOD-T3D printer with an estimated value of $200 for Studley Elementary School from an anonymous donor, and 2 used Toshiba Chromebooks with an estimated combined value of $250 for the Attleboro High School from Richard Sternbach. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City property and claims, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Budget and Administration, Barry Lacasse, regarding a reconveyance of the Judith H. Robbins Riverfront Park to the City of Attleboro. As you may recall, your honorable body voted to convey this property to the ARA so that access to grants and other funds could be used for the development and cleanup of the property. Now that the park has been completed and officially opened, I hereby request your honorable body approve the conveyance of the Judith H. Robbins Riverfront Park to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
Zoning and land use, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Park and Forestry, Derek Corsi, regarding the need for funds to purchase a new landscape utility trailer. Since a quote was obtained in November and a vote was taken by your honorable body, the trailer originally quoted is no longer available by the vendor. However, the vendor has offered another model for a difference in price of $22. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $22 from account Park and Forestry, salary and wages, to account Park and Forestry, small equipment.
Public Works, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding a grant that has been awarded via the 2018 Senator Charles E. Shannon Jr. Community Safety Initiative, or Shannon CSI, of approximately $10,144. The Attleboro Police Department collaborated with the Taunton Police Department in seeking these funds. The Shannon CSI implements a multidisciplinary approach to combat gang and youth violence throughout coordinated programs for prevention and intervention. No matching funds are required by the city. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments by the Attleboro Police Department.
Public Safety Emergency Management, please.
In anticipation of receiving a project funding agreement from the Massachusetts School Building Authority for the construction of a new Attleboro High School, the City Council will consider a loan order for the authorization of debt for the project. In order to be able to raise sufficient funds for the payment of principal and interest on the bonds, notes, or certificates of indebtedness to be issued for the project, the city must seek voter approval to assess taxes in excess of the amount allowed pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C. This is known as a debt exclusion. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C(k), the passage of the loan order will be contingent upon passage of the debt exclusion question. In order to provide the election department with as much advance time as possible to prepare, I hereby request your honorable body to vote to submit the following question to the voters at the April 3rd, 2018 election. Ballot question. Shall the City of Attleboro be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to design, construct, equip, and furnish a new high school located at 100 Rathbun Willard Drive, Attleboro, Massachusetts, including the payment of all costs incidental or related? And it would be yes or no. Although a 2/3 vote of your honorable body is required on or before the 35th day prior to the election, A vote by February 20th is preferred, as it would allow the municipal council to provide voters with important information materials in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18B.
Thank you. I distributed a timeline to all for the high school project. It was in your box. You should have found it there tonight, and we'll refer that to ordinances, elections, and legislative matters.
In further preparation for the proposed April 3rd, 2018 debt exclusion ballot question, it is important to know that local officials may not publish or provide voter information materials at public expense, including a summary of the impact a yes or no vote will have on local services, unless specifically authorized by statute. If, however, the municipal council were to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18B, the city of Attleboro would be authorized to provide the voters of Attleboro with important and valuable information concerning the debt exclusion. For your convenience, I have attached the full text of Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18B. Therefore, I respectfully request your honorable body to accept the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 53, Section 18B as amended. A vote on or before February 20th, 2018 is required in order to meet the statutory timelines contained in Chapter 53, Section 18B.
Thank you. That'll ordinances, elections, and legislative matters, please.
In anticipation of the April 3rd, 2018 debt exclusion ballot question, several steps need to be taken on a particular timeline to ensure a timely vote. In order to ensure your honorable body is making decisions based on the most current and complete information, it is important that the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, first have voted on our new high school proposal on February 14th, 2018, before a loan authorization can be presented. Therefore, I am scheduling a special meeting on Thursday, February 15th, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the Attleboro High School in the Fran Zito Conference Room, or 178E, to present the loan authorization to the Municipal Council.
Thank you. Copy to all councilors, which I believe was also in your box this evening.
Sincerely, Paul Haru, Mayor.
Any other communications?
There are a few, Mr. President. The first one is a communication dated January 21st, 2018 from resident Kelly Marcil suggesting a change in the winter parking ban.
Public Works Committee, please.
We also received a communication dated January 15th from resident Adam Struminski relative to changes in the winter parking ban.
Public Works Committee, please.
We received a communication dated January 28th, 2018 from Ashley Driscoll to Chairman of the Zoning and Land Use Committee, Councilor Todd Kobus, relative to suggested changes to the current medical marijuana zoning, or RMD.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
And one other, we received a communication dated February 5th from City Solicitor Lauren Galvin relative to the request for an explanation on the separation of powers among the Mayor, City Council, Planning Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals with regards to special permit granting authority.
Thank you. Copy to all councilors.
And that is all.
Thank you. And we will move right along to Committee of the Whole. I entertain a motion to go into Committee of the Whole.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone who wishes to address the council on any matter of city business? I entertain a motion to arise from Committee of the Whole. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are on to committee reports, and we will begin with Councilor Blair.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no business this evening for public safety and emergency management. I request a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you, President Cook, President Cooper. Reporting for Public Works, I have no business this evening, but I would like to call for a committee meeting at the appropriate time next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have three motions to bring before the council tonight on behalf of the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, all of them from the docket of January 2nd, 2018. I move to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $700,000 from the account undesignated fund balance free cash, general government, to fund 3548 Finberg Field.
Second?
Thank you. Motion is in order. Councilor Conti.
Yes, Mr. President. This has been delayed too long, and I want the public to know that there's a full binder, a 3-ring binder, in the council administrator's office for public view of exactly what the scope of this project is, and they can borrow it and read it in the annex room at any time and return it to the annex room. It's provided by Camp Dresser McGee Smith engineering firm that basically states that we're going to raise the level of the area that used to be the tennis courts, the parking lot, 18 inches up. And that's essentially it. Like everything else in government, there's always more to the story, but I think that suffices to cover all the details, Mr. President. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and we will begin with
Mr. Blair.
Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Kobus.
Yes.
Vice President Parika.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. From the docket of January 2nd, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $44,169.40 from the undesignated fund balance free cash general government to the Veterans Monument for the restoration of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument.
Second?
Thank you. Motion is in order.
This is going to take a little bit longer, Mr. President, and I apologize for that. I have for you copies of photographs of the monument just to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about. And it's been in the park since all of us were born. We heard from the committee members, former President Frank Cook, that they went out to the Massachusetts State Historical Records Advisory Board for an application for a preservation grant for Veterans Collection Sites and Memorials, and they filled out a 2017-2018 application, which has expired before the final deadline and is not valid for applying for funds in this fiscal year. This grant, I read it carefully because I was confused the night that it was presented. It states that when making the grant, and I'm going to just assume that this committee, the Veterans Monument Committee, is going to apply for this grant again next year. The grant states that letters of support from the community and/or researchers are in order, and that letters or commitments for matching funds and in-kind services are in order. It does not state that the money has to be approved by the municipal council and to be in place. There's a big difference there. So now I want all councils to be clear to understand that's all that's necessary for this group to go forward and apply for grants is to get a letter from us saying that we're in support of the project and a letter of commitment for matching funds or in-kind services, but not that we need to fund the whole project ourselves. The group so far has raised $120, and they are they're just getting started. So they're preparing a PowerPoint presentation, and I believe once they get that out to the fraternal organizations in the city, that $120 is quickly going to have a couple of zeros after it. So many of the groups in the city are so proactive in veterans' causes. They did produce a request for quotes, and I'll leave copies of both of these in the administrator's office so that all councils can get a look at them in the future. Their request for quote for the bronze statue was very specific, but the one thing that is causing them so much grief is that as we fund it, they have to go through prevailing wages, which means that anybody working on the repair of that statue must be in compliance with the state prevailing wage law. So it's not the case that we can take the statue down and if we fund it, that it can go to some professional restoration company, say Washington, D.C., and they work on it in their normal course of business. Instead, it has to go to a company. This is just like the gun law that we went through with the chief not too long ago. They have to restructure the wages of all the people working on the statue so they're earning the prevailing wage while they're working on the statue. which causes a lot of problems inside the company that does the work. This is from the police chief's own lips. So there's a lot to think about in this project. I personally think that this motion is before the council in a premature manner. And I will not be supporting this measure personally, because I think that we need to give the group an opportunity to go out and gain community support and community finances and volunteer dollars before we commit ourselves to a $44,000 expense. So we passed it through the committee. We've got it up on the floor to the council. I'm going to leave it in the council's hands, and that concludes my comments.
Sure, Councilor Copus first, then Parika, and then...
Thank you, Mr. President. As a veteran, I went out, I took these pictures that are here. I didn't understand what exactly was wrong with the statues. This, as a veteran, this was not offensive to me. I thought it was in okay state. So for me personally, I'm okay with delaying this right now. I was not offended by that. And I also looked online to see how people were trying to collect money for this, and it was, write a check and mail it into this address. I think that could be there's other means that could be a little more effective there. So for me, I won't be supporting this tonight either. That concludes my statement.
Thank you, President Cooper. My question would be, I am going back in my mind when we had this discussion, in December, or I believe, that the reason why they were coming to the city was that they needed matching funds to actually apply for the grant, or to say this funding would be there. Would that be correct?
That turns out to not be my understanding in reading the documents.
But the committee's understanding was that, former President Cook's understanding was that. However, because we didn't take action on it in December, and we waited until now, the deadline for the 2018 application process has lapsed, and they wouldn't be able to apply again until 2019. Would that be correct?
Their application deadline is December 15th, 2018.
For the 2019?
2018-19 application.
Okay. So perhaps there could be, because from what they were initially looking for the application, there wasn't, I recall that there was a very intense discussion about there was a deadline, and that's why this needed to move, so that, but that time frame has lapsed. So now they would be able to reapply, and the deadline for that is when?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
So the committee would be able to reapply, and what is that deadline?
December 15th, 2018.
So they have time to potentially fundraise and then reapply, and if they needed our assistance, they'd be able to come and ask us for that request again.
Correct.
Can I just ask you one question, Richard? Can you just say the dates again? Because I was with you and now I'm confused.
Right.
So if you could tell us the
committee made an application for the 2017-18 application period.
Okay, that's where I was confused, because you said 17, and it was actually the 2017-18, and we're moving it to 18-19.
And the deadline was December 15, 2017. I'm sorry, the draft deadline was December 15, 2017, and the final deadline was January 16, 2018. There's the confusion.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
I appreciate that clarity as well.
Councilor Dolan, and then Councilor Holmes, did I see?
Yes.
So when we talked about this in committee, and I feel like you already said this, but we just had to show support. If they got the grant, great, we don't have to pay anything. If they don't get the grant, we still can choose not to fund it. Is that right? Am I right? Is that what we said?
The committee, there's always more details, and I'm glad you asked the question. The committee only asked for $15,000 because that's all the grant was allowing. So they're not allowed to ask for all the money to restore the entire statue, bronze project. The grant only was available for $15,000.
Okay.
In applying for the $15,000 grant, the grant application asks for letters of support from the community and letters of commitment for matching funds. It does not state that the city would have to pay the rest. It's just an application for the $15,000. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Council Holmes?
When you say committee, I know you mentioned it. Who is it that's applying for the grant?
There is a committee in the city of Attleboro named the Veterans Monument Restoration Committee.
And something, because Todd, you mentioned that you, or Council Cobus, you mentioned you felt like it was in good condition, but something, they noticed something about it that they felt like it needed to be repaired. I'm just wondering, was there structural or was there some kind of?
In the request for quotes, the monument is described as a 35 feet in high granite shaft topped by a bronze figure of Civil War, and they hired a expert to come and analyze the patina, the exterior, the surface of the bronze statue, and granite seems to be structurally in good condition, although it's weathered and stained and dirt and organic matter, so they want to clean it. But the bronze is blackened with areas throughout of a green verdigris natural patina, and there's no evidence of any protective coating on the surface. And there's also no record found to indicate that the surface of the bronze was ever maintained since its dedication. Unprotected outdoor bronzes exposed to the environment will progressively corrode with time and continued exposure to acid rain, which is the primary pollutant. The corrosion will continue to accelerate. The metal is essentially eaten away, and the pitted, and thus the loss of surface detail is caused, and the process is evident throughout the surface of this bronze. It is particularly eroded on many of the top or horizontal surfaces. There's also some areas of iron staining and corrosion that are evident. There's no documentation or archival information available at this time that indicates that the formula or appearance of the original patina, so we don't know what it originally looked like, but we do know that it's suffering from being outside.
Councilor Delicio and then Councilor Hall.
Thank you. From a procedural standpoint, it seems like we have time, if I'm understanding what Councilor Conti's saying. So is there a way that we can, because it seems like we're guessing an awful lot on what this document means, what this means, what that looks like, what this looks like. I would feel more comfortable as opposed to just out and out voting it down and then having to go through this whole process again, potentially holding it, have members of the committee come and talk to us so they can appropriately answer our questions.
And you're going to look it up. You're looking it up, and we'll hear from Councilor Hall. Then you can make the motion, Councilor Conti.
Thank you. Thanks. First of all, I want to commend the committee for what they're attempting to do, because as I've been going around the city, I've been getting a lot of conversations about maintenance and the foresight or lack thereof of maintenance of things, so I commend them on their looking forward to doing that. But it sounds to me like what you're saying, please correct me if I'm not, that, you know, if perhaps they get another year to raise some more funds and put themselves in a much better position to be able to come and then ask again. So, I mean, I hope they'll continue. Is that correct? I'm sorry.
That's a very accurate assessment, in my opinion. That the motion came to us at the end of a political period, and there was a flood of panic-stricken, no, I shouldn't say that. There was a flood of bacteria quickly, and there was too much to absorb. Now that I've had time to absorb it, I feel very comfortable in my position. I do want to see the veterans get the respect that they deserve, particularly Civil War veterans. Are you kidding me? I think I've used it.
Thank you. No, you answered the question. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So similarly, I think that this is something that we can keep in committee, and if the numbers change, we can make a motion to amend where we wouldn't necessarily have to do, you know, Robert's Rules of Order calisthenics in it. We could just leave it there for now. And if we need to make a motion to amend sometime in September or whatever the case may be, I'm happy to withdraw my second. So that would be at your discretion, President Cooper.
So what I want to do, what I think we ought to do is refer it back to committee if you are in agreement. Councilor Conti, we're having an open discussion about next steps.
If Council Perica will withdraw her second, I'm happy to leave it in the committee as approved by the committee, which is a very unusual state for a motion. And I can't make a motion because I'm the chairman of the committee.
Right.
But if I was not the chairman of the committee, I might be inclined to make a motion to lay it on the table.
That's what I was going to do.
To an unending date, like if there's one that you don't have to pick a specific date to bring it back up.
There you go.
Yep. Yeah, so I would say,
I can't make that motion.
yeah, so, Councilor Blair.
Just to get this straight, President Cooper, they're asking us to say that if they get the grant, we will come up with $15,000.
No, that's not the motion.
No, wait, let him finish, Richard.
Read the motion.
Didn't you just say, excuse me, to the chair there, didn't you just say it was 15,000 was the amount of grant that we had to match?
Go ahead.
The application for the grant was for a $15,000 grant. The committee was asking us for $44,000 and change, not to match the grant, to fund the restoration of the statue.
So they're looking to fund the whole thing then, which is 44 plus 15?
I don't have the answer to that.
Mr. President, I move that we table the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
We have Council Perica, second. Let's do a roll call vote. That'll begin with Councilor Hall.
Councilor Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Mrs. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Vice President Perica,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
No.
President Cooper.
Yes.
10 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank
And
you,
that
Mr.
was what
President.
lay on the table, was it?
Yes.
10-1.
10-1, yep.
From the docket of January 2nd, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $18,800 from the undesignated fund balance free cash general government to the park mower for the purchase of a Kubota mower 54-inch.
Bob, second. Point of order, you said 18,008, it's 10,800.
I'm sorry, it is
That's okay.
$10,800. I stand corrected. So,
Motion's in order, Councilor Conti.
thank you, Mr. President. So, the Department of Parks and Forestry is requesting to purchase a commercial Kubota zero-turn mower, model ZD326 with a 50-inch mow. The mower has a state price bid of $10,800. It was a priority number 2 on the Parks and Forestry Capital Improvement Plan this coming year that we're coming up on. But the mower would replace the oldest mower in their fleet, which is 14 years old and has 1,800 hours on it. That's essentially the equivalent of 180,000 miles on a typical passenger vehicle. So the Parks and Forestry is concerned about the reliability of that 14-year-old mower. That's why this went from a number 2 priority to an urgent priority. During the 2018 season, the Parks and Forestry maintenance schedule will see the addition of the new Judith H. Robbins Park and the rejuvenated Angel Park. And the new mower would not only replace the older mower, which is larger, but this one with a smaller 54-inch deck has an easier time getting around all of the accessories and elements in the park. So with that, I highly recommend the passage of this motion, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and that will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the business the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council this evening. We look forward to, there's one final thing I forgot to mention. I have published a schedule of Saturday morning meetings for the Capital Improvements and City Development, which is available through the Administrator's Office. It's every Saturday in March, starting at 9 o'clock, March 3rd, at the Sanford Building, where we will be giving a tour by Mayor Paul Harrell. And ending on March 31st at 10 o'clock, when we'll meet at the Water Department and tour that urgent project, and then go to the Wastewater Department. I expect that to be longer than morning day. So I've scheduled the meetings, all the meetings. Virginia will be posting them publicly. The public is invited to all capital improvement meetings in the Saturdays in March. And I encourage all councilors to attend. If you cannot attend, I fully understand. I will be there. And I will testify to what I saw in subsequent meetings following. So I would love to see you all there, but many of you have already been there, and many of you have already seen these projects because they've been going on for years, and I understand why you may have other priorities on Saturday mornings, but I've got to do this. It's the right thing to do, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and that concludes my comment. And therefore, the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee would like to have a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Conti, one quick just point of order. You said Sanford Street, but your agenda shows Forestry main office as the first order of business on March 3rd at 9 a.m.
You're right. They switched.
Okay.
Forestry is first.
Just on March 3rd, that's a busy day for a lot of
Everybody.
because it's the super heat event is on the
I'll be
same
there
day.
with my tongue hanging out a little bit later.
We'll do it the other way around. All right, thank you very much. Councilor Cobus.
So I don't have any motions for tonight, but I do have a quick report. Oh, reporting for zoning and land use, excuse me. I do have a couple comments about the meeting we had last Monday. The primary goal of that meeting was to hear from the city planner. We talked to him about it provided him guidance for an updated ordinance for the zoning and land use, for the RMD ordinance and special permit requirements. He's going to get back to us before next Monday with a draft, and the intent is for us to review that draft next Monday. Additionally, we discussed the update of the table of use regulations and the difference between adjudication versus legislation. We were waiting to hear back from the solicitor. As was mentioned, we've received that feedback from the solicitor. It's being distributed to all the councilors, so we will talk about that again next Monday. So we have a meeting scheduled for Monday, February 12th at 7 p.m. I expect for that to be a long meeting. And that concludes my comments, and I ask for a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Parika.
Thank you, President Cooper. Reporting for Transportation and Traffic from the supplemental docket of November 21st, 2017. I move to discharge the following item from the Traffic and Transportation Committee to adopt the following ordinance relative to prohibited on certain streets. Be it ordained by the Municipal Council of the City of Attleboro that Section 10-5.2A, prohibited on certain streets, Chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro be hereby amended as follows, and I look to waive the rest of the reading of that.
I think
I gotta do the whole thing? You got it. Insert A, Beagle Club Road, easterly side, from 20 feet northerly of West Street to the Water Department Emergency Equipment Access Gate. Also see Section 10-5.15, seasonally prohibited on certain streets. B, Beagle Club Road, westerly side from the Water Department Emergency Equipment Access Gate southerly for a distance of 100 feet. Also see Section 10-5.15, seasonally prohibited on certain streets. And 2, insert the following new section, 10-5.15, Section 10- seasonally prohibited on certain streets. Parking upon the following streets or highways or parts thereof is hereby prohibited during the dates described herein. Beagle Club Road, both sides of the entire street from May 15th through and including September 15th of each year.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Councilor Parika.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the second, Councilor Conti. I think it's important to make this unusual. This is an unusual event on the municipal council to discharge something from committee and put it directly in front of the full council as opposed to coming through committee. I hope that you will support it. I think it's very important with the information that we gleaned this evening and other information that I have available. I would love to be able to share that with my fellow councilors, and I hope that you support the discharge.
So just procedurally, first we make the motion to discharge. We vote that. That requires a 2/3 vote, and then we would go on to the reading of the discharged motion. Any other questions about the procedural of discharging the motion? Councilor Reynolds and then Dolan.
So if it gets discharged, there's discussion, but it still has to come out as a motion at a regular time.
Just so I'm clear, the first motion that we have before us is the motion to discharge, and then the motion as discharged will come before the council for discussion.
Okay.
Councilor Dolan.
I sort of have the same exact question. So this is just to allow us to discuss it.
No, let me make sure I didn't mean to cut you off, but let me make sure I'm crystal clear. So the first motion before us is to discharge this, and then the subsequent motion that Councilor Parika will bring forward, if this passes by 2/3, will be the motion as discharged, and we can then discuss the merits of that motion.
Okay, so as discharged, does that mean it cannot be amended?
Does not.
It does not mean that it can't be amended, and we will all be able to discuss it?
That's right.
Point of order. It just as a clarification, it can be voted out. The discharge can come out. I can read the motion a second time, and if I don't get a second, we won't be able to discuss it.
It's procedurally the same.
Procedurally, it's the same, but
I just wanted to
would,
be clear.
I would still, once I read the motion, need a second before we could launch into discussion.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the discharge? Again, this requires a roll call vote. 2/3 vote is required, and the vote will begin with Councilor Hall, I believe.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
No.
Ms. Reynolds?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
9 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the supplemental docket of November 21st, 2017, I move to adopt the following ordinance relative to prohibited on certain streets. Be it ordained by the Municipal Council of the City of Attleboro as follows. That Section 10-5.2A, prohibited on certain streets, Chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking, of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro be hereby amended as follows. Insert A, Beagle Club Road, easterly side, from 20 feet northerly of West Street to the Water Department Emergency Equipment Access Gate. Also see Section 10-5.15, seasonally prohibited on certain streets. B, Beagle Club Road, westerly side, from the Water Department Emergency Equipment Access Gate, southerly, for a distance of 100 feet. Also see Section 10-5.15, seasonally prohibited on certain streets. To insert the following new section, 10-5.15, section 10-5.15, seasonally prohibited on certain streets. Parking upon the following streets or highway or parts thereof is hereby prohibited during the dates described herein. Beagle Club Road on both sides of the entire street from May 15th through and including September 15th of each year.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Delissio. The motion is in order. Councilor Parika.
Thank you very much. I do have some, I've had 2 weeks to think about this, so I do have some comments with regards to this. It's 4 pages, but I write really big, so it'll go fast. So first and foremost, I appreciate the ability to have the discussion, so thank you to my fellow councilors for allowing that. It is, the perception of this motion is that it is a forever ban, and it has never been my intention for it to be in effect for forever. This is step one in the peeling back of this Band-Aid process. I know that there are several residents from Beagle Club Road that have reached out to my fellow counselors to give them information and history about what has taken place down on Beagle Club Road, and I hope that that has answered some of your questions for some of the newer counselors. This motion actually restores the original parking restrictions that were implemented for safety and emergency response needs and to access the neighborhood and to access Manchester Reservoir. Without the former restrictions, if the sundown clause comes and expires, there are 0 restrictions on Beagle Club Road. Without the former restrictions, it's not unreasonable to expect that visitors to the reservoir or residents can park anywhere that they would like, both sides of the road in that location, thus preventing access by emergency vehicles. If you come down Beagle Club Road, it's pretty narrow at the very beginning, and especially when it pops out into the cul-de-sac. If there are vehicles parked on either side and there's a tragedy taking place up in Manchester Reservoir and timing is of the essence, you're not going to get emergency vehicles down there. It would be irresponsible, in my opinion, of this honorable body to take no action whatsoever and to have the sundown clause expire and have 0 parking restrictions. I've met and discussed with the police chief. He's in support of this plan. He's been an active member of everything that's taken place down there. He has worked and invested hundreds of hours of man hours and enforcement in that location. He would not have done so if the circumstances that have led to this were not accurate. We have the police reports. We have the reports from the residents in that location. There are lots and lots of cars. After the last public hearing, we had pictures sent to us by residents with multiple cars. I have a cell phone directory filled with cars parked in all sorts of crazy places down there. The police chief recognizes that though this may not be perfect, it's imperative that we have a protection in place and don't let the sundown clause expire and leave nothing. In addition to that, I do have an email which I would like to read that came from I consulted the fire chief as well. My apologies. Oh wait, no, it's over here. I can have that sent to all of you. Also stating the same thing, I did ask him what his opinion was. I said, as you're aware, there's been near constant struggle regarding parking in Beagle Club, blah, 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 blah. In the event that there are no parking restrictions at all, do you foresee any negative result regarding emergency response access? That was what my question was to him. His response was, thank you for bringing this to my attention. Because of the size of our fire apparatus, parking on both sides of the roadway would create a significant impediment to access the reservoir. It is my recommendation that parking be restricted on the roadway with at least the same restrictions that were present prior to the parking ban that was implemented 2 years ago. So thank you to Chief Chance for that. In addition to that, the police chief also said that the acceptance of this plan helps him with enforcement in that location. I've also met with the DPW director, and he has committed to assisting us in any way possible to make it very clear where parking is allowed, painting lines on the road, providing areas where one of the complaints is people park too close to the driveways of the residents at that location, so we can measure out, put in parking spots. It's not hard to find where your parking spot is, and it aids in enforcement in that location. As said earlier, this is step 1 in the process to allow parking. We need to take action and at the same time exercise caution, ensuring that we do this the right way. Rash actions are what brought us to where we are right now. I think we can all agree that we don't really want to be here ever again. In your inboxes tonight, you received what I would like to call a recreational zoning program. Please read it. Please make recommendations. Send Virginia emails to send to me. It'll be something that I will absolutely discuss during my next committee meeting. I'd like to take a moment just to thank Gary for his presentation tonight to the committee regarding the ever-present request for a parking lot on reservoir property. And I encourage any of you to bring that forward as new business. I may not support it on the council floor. I will always support it as new business being assigned to any committee. However the process needs to start to get that going, well, we all know what the process is. It needs to be referred to the administration. He needs to work through all of that and then send down an appropriation. Be my guest. Anyone can make that recommendation. We need to be responsible and prudent in our actions tonight. I'm exceptionally encouraged that the doors that were closed to myself, to the ward counselor, and the blockades and the speed bumps that were ever present regarding this issue by the previous administration have been torn down, and the possibilities to bring this neighborhood into balance are real and they are tangible. It is my hope that you will have faith in me as the chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee, that I will steadfastly continue my work and will reach a fair and equitable solution that is acceptable to all of you, but more importantly to the residents of the city. If we don't take action, there are negative consequences. I have that confirmed by the people that we look to create safety in our community. I hope that you will support the plan, and I hope that you, again, have faith in me to make sure that and please hold me accountable. You won't have to, because I will be working on this at our next committee meeting, but please feel free to hold me accountable. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Kobus, then Conti, then Hall.
Thank you for that. And so, for those of you not aware, I live on Clifton Street, right across the street from the Manchester Reservoir. And with the ban in effect last year, parking did increase on Clifton Street, and I saw a noticeable increase there. I understand that this isn't perfect, but I feel like that increase on Clifton Street, Clifton is a little bit more of a visible thoroughfare. There's a little bit more visibility there than on Beagle Club Road, and it wasn't horrible last year. Now, with that said, there was one day when I was leaving for work and there was a police officer across the street from the end of my driveway looking around on the ground. I stopped and I asked him, "What are you doing?" And he was looking for needles. Somebody had reported there were 3 needles there. He had found 2. He was looking for the 3rd one. And so I understand the concerns of these neighbors. I am very empathetic of their concerns and understand what happens there. I think the security risks on Clifton Street are a little bit less of a concern than on Beagle Club Road, in my opinion. I understand that this isn't perfect, but I will be supporting this. And I'm also open to the parking, provided there's security for the parking lot on Beagle Club Road. And that concludes my statements.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
So I believe it is important for the council to be responsible and prudent to the residents of Attleboro, and that's why I will not support this measure. I think that it's rash actions that led to this parking ban. And never in the history of Attleboro has there ever been an incident when emergency vehicles have not been able to get down Beagle Club Road. You know, the passion of the chair exceeds the logic. There should be 0 parking restrictions on Beagle Club Road. It's a road like all other roads in the city of Attleboro. We never should have put a parking ban in the first place. It was an extraordinary right for a neighborhood that should not have been permitted. The parking lot is the solution, not the parking ban. The parking lot is exactly what we need, as Councilor Kobus said, with proper video. My recollection of the video camera that was installed at the Veterans Memorial Pavilion, which was donated by Black Cat Security in Foxborough, Massachusetts, was that it was $3,600 for the equipment, and that it was requiring a $126 a month Comcast bill to sustain it. I'm guessing that the police department is going to want more than 1 camera, so just do the math. But that is a high-resolution camera that I can access on my cell phone any time of the day. Suspending the ban takes the onus off of the urgency to get the parking lot done. So if you vote to keep the parking ban, it takes all the pressure off on getting the work done to get the parking lot built. And I don't believe that this parking lot needs to be 6 figures. I believe that this parking lot can be constructed for far, far less. We've looked at the Cadillac version. We all want the Volkswagen version, or the lesser expensive version. So I have been against this parking ban on Beagle Club Road since the beginning. Check the voting record, you'll see I've never supported it because it's wrong. And I think that concludes my comments.
Council Hall.
Okay, so, well, again, I agree. I think that for me, I'm just going to speak for myself and speak for some of the residents that spoke to me. I believe that the parking, this is new to me. I apologize that it's new to me, but it's new to me, okay? I'm not going to put blame on anybody about why it didn't come out, but I wish it had. So I feel a little bit sideswiped, not by anybody personally. I just feel that this information, to me, is now putting me in a difficult situation, because I feel like we could have gotten a win-win situation had we discussed this parking, because I think it does make a difference. I do think it makes a difference. I'm not in agreement of banning any roads for any period of time. We just open this up to passive recreation, and then we're taking it away. I don't care if it's for 2 days, but we are. So what I would like to do, when is the sundown on this?
February 20, may I respond?
Yeah.
February 28th, the parking restriction has been in place for 2 years. The parking ban has been there for 2 years.
So if it's February 28th, I would like to lay this on the table. I would like to move to lay it on the table to February 20th, okay, so that we could have the discussion about the parking lot to see whether that is feasible to do that. And I think if we can find out that it's feasible to do that, it may make a difference on my ability to...
I'll second that motion. The motion is not debatable.
I understand.
Calls for vote.
Thank you. Yeah. So the motion is to lay the motion relative to, ordinance relative to parking on certain streets on the table until February 20th. The motion is in order. It will require a roll call
It
vote.
requires a roll call majority vote.
Yeah.
And that'll begin with Mr. Blair.
Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
A no vote is to not lay it on the table.
That's right.
No.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
No.
Vice President Parika?
No.
Mr. Delissio?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
Can I ask a question? I can't.
Procedurally, could you ask a question?
No.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
President Cooper?
No.
We have 6 noes, 5 yeas.
So the
Failed.
motion fails.
Yep.
We are back to the original motion as seconded by Councilor Delissio. Any other? Councilor Parika.
Thank you. I appreciate and understand what you were trying to do there. I really do.
Thank you.
I get
It was
it.
nothing personal.
No, it is 100% not personal whatsoever. It's hard to take emotions out of something that has consumed 70% of my life for the last 4 years. It's very challenging. That no matter where I go, whether I was at the farmer's market, whether I'm at the grocery store, whether I'm sitting at my kitchen table with friends, this has consumed my entire life. Similar to the residents, similar to the individuals who want passive recreation. I think in discussions today with regards to the having the conversation about the parking lot, with all the steps that would have to go through, we'd come back here on the 20th, we wouldn't have an answer. And again, that's why I'm asking, I know, so next week at my committee meeting, we're gonna discuss the restricted parking zones, which I'm going there. The previous administration wouldn't allow anything, wouldn't allow paint on the road. He wouldn't entertain the discussion about the parking lot. I mean, there's nothing I can do if I can't get the administration to have a conversation. And I know I'm looking at you.
That's okay.
I'm not,
You're looking at it very nicely. So
he would not entertain any of those discussions with me whatsoever. There was an opportunity that the ward counselor and I had a meeting, and we had an administrator walk out on us because they didn't want to hear it. I was stuck. This is as good as I could get it. If I brought this, so this was referred to me by Joe Cap. So this is restricted parking zones where you could have a program that helps ease parking congestion in residential neighborhoods around some significant demand generators, which would be Manchester Reservoir. Any discussion as it pertains to a permitting parking thing? Absolutely not. This is new business. This is brand new, something that's happening out in Seattle. It's something that we could mirror here. We've talked about parking pass programs before. No, we're not doing that. Or we can't do it for this particular reason, you know, on 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Street for the train traffic because it's not legal. We're not legally allowed to do that. But if we designate this as a significant demand generator, we might be able to move forward. I have things that are available to us that I am more than happy to discuss. And I couldn't be more excited to have the ability to have things be viable. Until January, what was the inauguration? January 2nd, whatever it was, I didn't have that capability. And so in between all of this, we have a sundown clause that expires on January 1st. I'm not actually able to make any headway, heads, tails, or anything. The one thing I have been able to do is bring the individuals in that neighborhood into a more agreeable stance that they would be willing to have a discussion about the parking lot, which was completely off the table unless I've been working with those residents for 2 years. I've been stuck. Now here we are with a sundown clause beaming down on us, and we'll have no parking restrictions whatsoever, which nobody wants. It doesn't even revert, because we took the language that I've read twice this evening, because we took that language out of the ordinance book, the sundown clause comes, poof, we've got nothing. And all right, there's no pressure on anyone to get anything done then either, because he's happy because there are no parking restrictions, and we can take as long as we'd like to find out how long it will take us to get a parking lot. The one that's being recommended by the city planner isn't what the municipal council wants. It would be up to the administration to make his determination as to what he wants. We can make suggestions to that. But what do we do in the meantime? There may never have been an instance where emergency vehicles haven't been able to get to where they go, but I'm not really willing to risk testing that theory. I think it's fair for us, if you want to make a motion to amend the dates, make a motion to amend the dates. Whatever you'd like to do, however you want to get this done, I'm fine. I need to make sure that the restrictions that were there previously, not for convenience, not because nobody wanted anyone parking in front of their house, it was for safety reasons. That's what needs to take place. And again, I'm looking at you, but I'm not yelling at you.
I appreciate it. Can I, may I?
Yeah, Councilor Hall, and then
just finish up, and then,
yeah.
and I appreciate that. This is what this is all about. I mean, to have these kinds of open discussions and to be able to bring that, and I think that's one of the things, like I said, there's a lot of things that have come and a lot of constituents that have asked these questions about the parkland and so forth, and I think that there's some information that's coming out that's very important for people to hear, and I appreciate 100%. I'm going to ask you as the chair, you ask, to have that trust, and I want to have that trust, and I think that the one biggest concern I have is to have that seasonal thing, and I would ask if there is, and I've asked it of the residents several times, like, if we can move forward, are you really willing to get rid of that ban? And if you're really willing to work on that and to get to that point, I think that's great, and you'll make that commitment. I appreciate that.
Can I read this? Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. They are exceptionally willing to work with us. They came to us and said, we want me, and they said, I want these dates, and I said, I'm not going to get to those dates, let's shrink them back in. Whatever we can get, they recognize that rash decisions took place that led us here. I got to walk it back. And, you know, I've sent them this information. They're cool with it. Having lines painted on the street so that when they come home after a long day of work, they can actually get into their driveway. And we have the ability to enforce it. Fantastic. They would like to be able to, they've sacrificed a lot. They aren't allowed to park on their street either. They have a third birthday party for their son. They're parking on their front lawn. Lots of the residents down there have invested and widened their driveways to accommodate for this. For some of us to sit here and say, I don't necessarily believe that this is as concerning of a problem as it is, they wouldn't have sacrificed as much as they have done. They wouldn't have invested as much as they have. We wouldn't have the police department investing the man hours and time to correct this issue. It's corrected right now. It's in a good place right now. The second, unless we have protocols in place, unless we have enforcement, I don't know how to refer, like tag markers, like, oh, that car's back end is outside of the parked, you know, the painted line on the spot. I can ticket them, I can tow them, I can do whatever the case may be. Unless we have those kinds of things in place, enforcement is very challenging. Mm-hmm. So again, you know, I am steadfast in my desire to regain parking in that location. I don't disagree with any of it. And I don't think that the neighbors do too. They would like to be able to park on their street as well. But I don't have time to vet any of these other, any of these things in 30 days. I didn't have time to do it. So this is what I could bring forward before and at that, I didn't even have 30 days. So that way we would be able to move forward on these things.
Thank you for your comments and your commitment. Appreciate that.
Council Blair.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Heather. I know you've worked hard at this. I've had conversations with the administration. I won't say he's favorable, but he's willing to listen about parking. Mm-hmm. I went over it in quite detail with him in his office, one-on-one. I think there's a way to do it myself. I think Council, excuse me, Kate has come up with an idea that we seem to both hit it off. It can be done reasonable. Mm-hmm. I made a suggestion. I think I don't want to spend $125,000 down there, but if we got to spend 20, 25 to appease the neighbors, get them squared away, they went through an awful lot. And as Heather said, they spend a lot of money on blacktop. You know, it's a real inconvenience for them not to park on the street. I think with Heather's commitment that hopefully by the time summer comes around, or at least it gets done this year, we'll have something down there, and we'll meet halfway in the middle. Mm-hmm. I'm begging my fellow councilors to have some common sense on this. Let's do what's right for everybody. Push for the parking lot. But if we don't get it, then it's upstairs. He isn't doing his job. And you said you couldn't get it done before. I never had that problem.
We had a different relationship.
Okay? I never had that problem
I understand.
before, so I'm not going to sit here and bash the previous administration. What I'm interested in is getting the problem solved.
I'm with you.
And it's solvable.
Amen.
But it's not solvable if you don't go along. We can come back. Things aren't written in stone. Let's give Heather time. What was it, June 1st? I mean,
May 15th, the restriction would be May 15th through September 15th. I'm sorry, yes. That's okay. May 15th to September 15th.
Would it appease anybody that's got some reservations if we move that up to June 1st? To after Labor Day? You know, and we wouldn't have had a letter from the fire department who we put in that position of trust, in a position of his knowledge
He's our public safety.
of an emergency situation, or our police chief that spent a lot of time, and as Heather said, a lot of our tax dollars going up and down that street trying to keep peace on that street and not have the problems they had. So my asking of this council is use some common sense. If you want to put in a motion to amend it to June 1st to the day after Labor Day, whatever, fine. But let's get something done so we can accomplish something with some common sense. I know that's not very common anymore, but sitting around this council, there's got to be a majority of us that think common sense is a natural thing, it's a good thing. The parking at $70,000, $100 and some thousand, that's not common sense. We refused to park from the past administration because it was too much money. And did you see what the city did with very little? Mm-hmm. We have a nice park. We could have a decent parking area down there. In the water department, I've said it before, they're on 24/7. If they can't open and close a gate on their property, then something's wrong. So there is a way to do this, and all it takes is common sense from a majority of us to pass this tonight with an amendment. I'll even put in the amendment that it be June 1st. I make a motion that we amend it to June 1st till the day after Labor Day.
Second.
Thank you.
Well, you
That's actually
went
longer.
back, that's
longer.
You made it
That's
longer.
What do you mean?
Till the 15th of September, how to make it
You
longer?
went June 1st, I'm sorry, you're right, I was looking at something else.
I can hear you way over here.
So
Oh, I didn't know if you could hear me.
the motion was made by Councilor Blair, seconded by Councilor Delicio, and we are going to vote on the amendment being the Beagle Club Road, both sides of the entire street, from June 1st to the day after Labor Day, through and in.
What?
Can I look at my phone to look at a calendar? or-
Makes it September, so now you go at the last,
Labor Day changes every year,
Yeah, it's
Sarah.
usually the
It's like,
first.
it's like, it's like
It's the first
15
Monday in
days
September.
short.
that's it, yeah, I think it should be
Day
2.
after the first Monday in September, you want to word it that way?
September
And
4th.
it's 30 days shorter, right? 15 from May and 15 from September?
Yep.
About 30 days shorter.
Roughly.
September 6th is Labor Day.
About 30 days short, yeah.
So the motion is in order, seconded by Councilor Delicio. We will have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Hall.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
No.
Ms. Reynolds,
I think it should be longer. I think it should be longer. No, I think it should be shorter. I want to see it
Don't-
different.
We're
So-
voting.
no, we're voting.
Can I make an amendment
No,
after?
after you can if it doesn't pass you.
So yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Vice President Parika,
No.
Mr. Kovas,
No.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
I wasn't even close to call.
President
I know.
Cooper,
Yes.
8 yeas, 3 nays.
Motion passes. So the motion before us is as amended, June 1st to the day after Labor Day. And next on the list, I got to go back, was Councilor Delicio. Then I saw Reynolds, Holmes, and Hall.
Thank you, President Cooper. I just want to be careful with some of the language and some of the things that we're saying here. I think this is different, so all roads aren't the same. This isn't like every other road, because not all roads in Attleboro lead to a reservoir. That's something that's important. I personally have to be inclined to listen to our public safety chiefs, and if they say in their expert opinion that no ban, parking on both sides could lead to an issue, I'm not willing to take that risk. I don't know that this removes any of the urgency based on the discussion that we've seen here, whether it was at the committee meeting earlier or here on the floor tonight. But we're talking about stuff that's not even in front of the council right now. Like, what's in front of the council right now is this ban, which will give us a little bit more time to really make sure that we get the right thing in place. Since my time on the council, I've always said we've got to be careful if we're painting with such a broad brush. I think back to when we were talking about, and I believe Councilor Cooper, I think it was Councilor Thibodeau, who was the chair of transportation at the time, when we were talking about the parking on 3rd Street. And this is a different situation. We always hear, well, it's never been done before. Well, that doesn't mean it can't be done. And I think that that's where we need to look at. What my concern is, it's the Beagle Club Road, people are being painted out as crazies and they're unreasonable, and none of this is the case. I think similar to what Councilor Kobus saw in terms of the police officer picking up those needles, it's a very real situation that they have endured. There is documentation to that in terms of the police report. I think we need to, I echo most of what Councilor Blair said, and I think that it's really time that we fix this. This is our job. This is our job to have these discussions, to get something in place that makes sense, that, because none of us want to make it harder for those who want to use the reservoir. None of us want to make it harder for the people who live there. This is going to be a compromise, which we've said from day one, and it's going to be a compromise where not everyone's happy, and that's how you know it's a successful compromise. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds, did you have your hand up?
So I'm, all of you know, I'm in total opposition to a ban. I always have been, I will continue to be, and that's just the way it's going to roll out. I think we're asking 4 months to make it no parking. The ban is there for the best 4 months of the June 1st, June, July, August till September, so 3 months. So but it started at 4. So I think we should give 2 and 2. So it should be, you know, two of the best months go to the entire residents of the city, and 2 of the months go to the people that live on that street. There is new business for parking, so that there could be parking spots allowed there, and that we brought up new business tonight because we know now that there can be a parking lot there. So my choice would be to amend it to be only 2 months that it's available for no parking, even though I personally don't think there should be any. I think it should be allowed parking all the time for anybody, anytime. So I would like to see it from, take 1 from each end. So it would go
Right now it's June 1st.
June 1st, so it would go July 1st. So wouldn't it go, what would it go? July 1st to August 31st, right? And so that would be 2 months. 2 months. What am I thinking?
Yeah, that's
Help me
That would
out.
be the month of July
That
and the
would
month
be
of
in the
August. So
month
you're
of
making that
August.
motion,
So
Councilor?
2, yes, I'm making
July
that
and
motion.
August.
July and August.
Thank you. So the motion is to amend from June 1st through the day after Labor Day, through Labor Day, to July 1st to 7/1 through 8/31, seconded by Councilor Conti, made by Councilor Reynolds.
Oh, yes?
So the motion is in order. Any discussion?
Yes.
Councilor Hall first.
Thank you. I mean, I'm going to just reiterate, because I think I'm getting confused. It's like 2 months, 2 days, 2 weeks, to what, you know what? And I expressed this, and I thought that I heard that I got a commitment that we are moving towards no days being banned. I mean, I'm completely in agreement with the safety issues that are going on. That's reasonable. That's not anything that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ability for everybody to be able to use that street at any time, given the safety issues. And please, I want to make sure that that's what you and I are understanding, that eventually there will be no ban other than the parking ban for safety. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, that's the goal.
Thanks.
I'm not sure what time frame we can achieve that goal in.
That's okay.
That's not up to me if it's a parking lot, if it's the acceptance of, this is, that's not up to me. I don't set the time frame on that, so I can't say I will have all of this all wrapped up with a nice, pretty bow to present to council, because Lord knows if you want to mess anything up, bring it before the municipal council. That's usually what happens. So I don't have a time frame on how this would work out. So my other comments with regards to that, I hope that answered your
That answers
question.
my question. I mean,
That's what my goal is.
because it doesn't make any difference if we do it 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever, if eventually the goal is to not have any months. So thank you. I mean, I just want to make sure that on behalf of the residents that have talked to me, that that's what they want to eventually see, is everybody gets to use that street, what is available to use of that street once the safety ban gets put in.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you
Councilor
so
Holmes, did you have-
I do. I mean, I think common sense is, of course, what I'm all about. I mean, I don't think that we're here because of rash action. I think we're here because of inaction. If there was something on the table about parking, I don't know why it's taken since 2014 till now. It sounds like, I'm not really sure. I think, Heather, you're a very strong person, and I think you could have certainly pushed it forward. I'm not
Never
really...
had to work with them, so no.
Okay. Well, so what I'm concerned with is that there's, I think, 17 or 18 no parking on the street, and there's 16 houses. I drove down there and was concerned somebody was going to come out and ask me what I was doing there. It's not welcoming. People, even if there's a parking ban, people don't feel like they can walk down there. It's not accessible. I would encourage everybody to drive down there and see it. I was shocked. So I'm really hoping that we can work together and come up with a solution to get some parking down there and hopefully solve a lot of the issues. I understand, I don't think that there should be 20 parking spaces or anything excessive like that, but there needs to be a plan in place. And also, this is going to continue to come up as Hike Attleboro comes up and we start to have more land that's used for hiking. Parking is an issue. People can't hike if they can't park the car somewhere. So we really need to have a solution for this and use it as a model for other areas. Not sit in it for 4 years, not sit in it for a year. So if anybody thinks that I'm voting in a way that's indicating that I'm not for this, it's not that. It's that I want to see us move in the right direction. So that's...
And again, we are, what we're talking about right at this moment is to amend the dates from 7/1 to 8/31. So if your comments are about amending the date, we'll go through that. If they're not, then we'll go back to the motion for the discussion. So, Councilor Reynolds.
Okay, since I made the amendment with some help, I just have a question before we vote on that amendment. Can there be an amendment to put a sundown clause in this then? If we're all working to make it happen, then why can't there be a sundown clause? I mean, quite frankly, that's what it's about. So I would like to see a sundown clause in it. Do I make that?
No, there's a motion on, hold on.
Excuse me.
There is a motion on the floor to amend the dates.
Okay, thank you.
7/1 to 8/31, made by yourself.
Yes.
Seconded by Councilor Conti. That's what we're discussing.
Thank you.
Once that is either up or down, we will go back to the motion as amended or not, if it fails, and then we can have further discussion on the matter. And we will go to Councilor Dolan because she was next in line.
You put the car wash on that because that's not a good date.
Any other questions on the dates to amend? Councilor Parika.
Thank you very much. So our new counselors may not remember this because they probably didn't, well, maybe they did, I don't know, but I would have the expectation that they didn't watch the public hearing that we have had here previously when this first came out, we had to have a public hearing, and there was discussion. I know, I'm getting there.
The date. That's what we're talking about,
Right.
making the amendment to the date.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Okay, get there.
So initially, the dates were April 1st to November 1st. Then we discussed it in front of the full council. I took input from absolutely everybody, well, not everybody that was sitting here, but most of the people. And these were the dates that we decided on for the specific reasons. Well, not the June date, but the May 15th, because the recommendation from the administration and from the police department and from the residents is that the activity in that location perked up just prior to the kids getting out of school and died down significantly after the kids went back to school. So we did vet those dates previously. June 1st to the day after Labor Day, I'm sure, is rather palatable, but that's where those dates stemmed from. The recommendation of the residents was significantly longer than that, and we brought it back, and they were happy with that. I won't, of course, be supporting that, so.
Okay, so procedurally, we are voting on the amendment of the dates. And the amendment of the dates that Councilor Reynolds made the motion, seconded by Councilor Conti, was 7/1 to 8/31. Yes means you want to amend the dates. No means you do not. Any other procedural questions on the amendment? Hearing none, we have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
No.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
No.
Vice President Parika?
No?
Mr. Delissio?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
No.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
President Cooper?
No.
So we have 5 yeas and 6 nays.
Motion fails. So we are back to the original motion, which is, excuse me one second, let me just write this down.
We're back to the original amendment, aren't we?
We're, as amended, June 1st through the day after Labor, through Labor Day.
Where are we?
And we are, Councilor Dolan, did you still have questions?
Can I say whatever
Yes,
I want now?
you may.
So I agree with Councilor Delissio when he said not all roads are the same. Because I might feel different about all of this. I don't agree with the ban necessarily. I want there to be parking down there, but I used to live on a road that went to the watershed, went to a water tower, and there were needles, and there were beer bottles, and there were people from other states hanging out up there. I was almost hit by a car by one of them when I was 8 months pregnant. I came to the council for a gate, and I lived on Ides Hill. I don't know who was here at that point that might remember, but that changed everything in my neighborhood. I mean, I know we're not technically restricting access. They do have to walk. But, you know, I don't know. I feel both ways. I feel for the people in the neighborhood because I lived in one of those neighborhoods, and it wasn't pleasant. But I also know fishermen, and I know people like to walk, and I know if you have a 3-year-old that you want to take out there, a 3-year-old's not necessarily going to make the quarter mile or half mile, and then the other quarter mile, half mile once you get in there. So, as Councilor Parika said, yes, hold me accountable. And I will definitely do that. I want us, and like Councilor Holmes said, we need to work together and get this done and make it at least somewhat relatively palatable for everybody involved. I guess that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor, what's next? Reynolds or Delissio? I wrote them down at the same time. So.
Yeah,
Councilor
I'm just, I think that if we're holding accountable, there should be a sundown clause in it. And I suggest that it be at the date that this is to end, which I believe is September 3rd.
Is that a motion?
So, Councilor Reynolds, are you making?
I am making a motion to
I'll
put
second
in
the
a
motion.
sundown.
Excuse me. Councilor Conti, would you please let me write and recognize the councilor before you blurt out what the procedural thing is? If you have a question, just call a point of order. I'm happy to recognize you, but let me. Councilor Reynolds, are you making a motion to put a sundown clause of September 3rd?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And Councilor Conti, did I hear you second that motion?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So we have a motion is in order to add sundown language to the motion to this would end on September 3rd. Motion is in order. Hearing discussion, Councilor Blair, then Parika.
I really don't think that we're addressing the main problem, and as Heather brought up, June is a bad month down there. Kids are out of school, they're looking for a place to hang out. It's a bad month for the neighbors. I thought my motion from June 1st to the day after Labor Day was fair.
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
This just means it ends on the 3rd.
So again,
Where are we?
let me make sure that he's clear before we start flirting
Yeah,
out.
okay.
So, this motion
Is he
before
against-
us right now is to add a sundown clause
To my
to
motion?
your motion as amended, June 1st through the day after Labor Day. It would end on September 3rd.
All right, thank you for that
Sure.
clarification,
Thank you.
because I was lost there.
Okay, Councilor Parika.
Have any of you had to suffer through managing a sundown clause in any of your committees? Any of you? I have. I had to because of elections, because the sundown clause expired on January 1st, because of 80 different reasons. Here we have it expiring, the sundown clause would expire on September 3rd. We don't have a committee meeting until the next night, and we've only had 2 one-week meetings in July and August for me to manage this. So in the event that after budget season and capital improvements and special elections and different things that take place along this committee, now I'm held to a standard that none of you have ever been held to in any of your committees, that you don't trust me or believe in me enough to get this job done. It may not be by the date that you want, because you know what, some of it's not in my power to do so. If I have to, if someone introduces new business and that gets referred to the administration to put in a parking lot, that could be assigned to Public Works. It could be assigned to any other committee. And if Miss Kate doesn't get her stuff done, and you're gonna hold up, or we're gonna have a problem with this, and I have to manage the sundown clause? Like, I used an example earlier today. If the chairperson of Traffic and Transportation comes to me and says, Heather, I went and I visited a car dealership, and I observed that there were 80 cars there. I went and I talked to them and said, you're only permitted for 60. And then you go back a couple days later, and those 60 cars are the only ones there, and this is what's being retold to me on this council. I believe her. To question and to put in a sundown clause that I might have to file for an extension for, and then we're going to get all angry because I have to file for an extension because conditions that were out of my control prevent me from being able to move forward on some of these things. I think that's unfair, and I think that as a group of people, we're a new council, and we're supposed to be able to, we're working to be able to trust one another, and to put in a sundown clause it just pretty much tells me that you don't believe me that I'm going to do my job. There's no sundown clause on creating a moratorium on marijuana. There's no sundown clause on any of the ordinances, elections, or legislative matters. There's no sundown clause on anything in budget. And I'm thoroughly insulted by the fact that you wouldn't have faith in me. And you know what, to say that it's taken 4 years to get here, yep, it has. Because 2 years ago, I was excluded from any of the discussions. Myself and the ward counselor were excluded from the discussions with the residents. The residents were told, don't talk to Councilor Parika or talk to Councilor Cooper, and to talk to other counselors. There's history here that perhaps maybe we should have Googled on the Sun Chronicle the lifetimes and history of things on Beagle Club Road, because that might have been helpful. I think that you can do what you want with your sundown clause, but when it comes time for me to, if it's necessary for me to have to ask for an extension because of things that are beyond my control, I'm going to remind you of this conversation.
Thank you. So, again, the motion is to amend the date, to add a sundown clause of September 3rd to the existing motion. Any other questions? We will have a roll call vote. Oh, Councilor Hall.
I appreciate the conversation that we're having. I really do. This is probably the most honest conversations I think that this council has had in a long, long time, and I appreciate that, because I too have been in this situation, as all of us have, in the frustrations when we work our hearts out to do something, and it's okay to question things. Very okay to question things, but I think in terms of, when somebody does a lot of work on something, and I think the trust issues is one of those. I think we've all experienced that, so I just want to say I appreciate your frustration with that, and hopefully, I know it's going to be hard to walk out of here and not take anything personally. I really do appreciate that, but please don't, and I think that thank you for your candidness, that's what I can say.
Thank you. So the motion is in order, requires a roll call vote, and it will begin with Councilor Hall, I believe.
Council Blair, I believe.
Oh, Councilor Blair.
No.
No? Council Hall? Oh,
No.
you're saying no. Okay, thank you.
We're all getting confused, Steve.
Ms. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
No.
Vice President Perica?
No.
Mr. Delisio?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
No.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
You said yes?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
No.
And President Cooper?
No.
3 yeas, 8 nays.
Motion fails. So we are back to the motion as originally amended June 1st through the day after Labor Day. Council, please.
Happy to. I recognize Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. So I do want to give you all a little bit of history, and I have tried to not say this publicly in an effort to not make any negative reflection on the previous administration, but I have to tell all of you that I went as the Ward 2 councilor to the South Attleboro Fire Station to a meeting of the neighborhood meeting, and I was told at that meeting that that was an administration meeting and not my meeting, and I was prepared to pack my bags and go, and Councilor Conti, you remember it, and I was prepared at that moment to pack my bags and go home, but I was told to sit in the back of the room and be quiet, and I chose to do that, which goes against my every fiber of my being to sit there and be quiet. It's hard for me to do, but I did it, and I listened, and I heard what was going to happen, and I didn't like any of it. And so I went to the councilors that were involved in that, Councilor Delisio, Councilor Perica, Councilor Conti, and told them about what happened at that meeting, which was there was going to be a ban brought before the council for parking along the whole street, which I didn't necessarily agree with, but I was in a position to do something to protect the neighbors, and that what was before us. There was a lot of discussion about a parking lot. A lot of discussions. In fact, George Rhodes called me in Florida to ask me about my thoughts on the parking. So like Councilor Perica said, Google it. It was discussed. It wasn't discussed at the length that Gary discussed it here before this council. I don't know that it was ever discussed as public as it was discussed this evening, but it certainly was discussed. And there is new business before the council tonight that I think will be referred in the appropriate way, and we will move that forward. But we have to do something so that we, at a minimum, go back to the previous parking restrictions that were on Beagle Club Road, and we add a reasonable time frame to the ban so that we can get things done. If we don't do that, we're going backwards. We're going backwards. We're not making any forward progress. That concludes my comments. Thank you, Councilor Perica.
Mr. President, I'd like to move the motion.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. So the motion is in order as amended June 1st through the day after Labor Day. We won't do a full reading unless anybody needs that. And it would require we need to motion to move it? No, you moved it, non-debatable, we're moving it. So, Mr. Withers, the roll call vote will begin with Councilor Hall.
Yes. Council Hall?
Okay, I'm sorry.
I know, this is confusing.
Excuse me, once again, what are we voting on?
So we're voting the motion as amended, June 1st through the day after Labor Day.
I thought we already voted that.
We did, but it's amended. So let me finish. Before you're all jumping down my throat, please let me finish speaking. If you have a question, just call a point of order, and I'm happy to recognize anyone. So the motion let me give you some history that we all just sat through briefly. The motion came out the 15th through this May to September 15th. Right? We went through a couple iterations, and we landed at June 1st through the day after Labor Day. So it's the original motion as amended with those dates. That's what we're voting on.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Council's motion to move the question requires a 2/3 majority vote.
I'm getting there. Thank you. So we will have a 2/3, it will require a 2/3 vote to move it, and then we will vote it. Any other procedural questions? Any questions on what you're voting on? Hearing none, Yeah, I promoted you again. You were there once, I moved you back up, Steve.
This is to move the vote.
This is to move the vote. It's a roll call vote. 2/3 is required. It will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. The motion to move passes, and then go right into the vote. So there will be no discussion, a roll call vote for the motion as amended and moved by Councilor Jackson, begins with Councilor Hall. No,
No.
Blair.
Blair, and seconded by Delicio.
Councilor Blair. Okay,
Oh, ready?
yeah,
Okay, Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
No.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
No.
Ms. Holmes?
No.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
President Cooper?
yes.
8 yeas, 3 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
The words
Amen.
of Bill Belichick.
Thank you, moving right,
He said it.
Councilor Parika, you calling?
Finish the job.
I will. Well, that actually concludes the business for, what is that, transportation and traffic for this evening, and I call for a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio.
Thank you, President Cooper. Reporting for budget and appropriations from the docket of February 6, 2018, I move to transfer $95,000 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Citywide Other Financing Uses to provide project contingency funding for the 10-mile cantilevered walkway.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Councilor
We
Delicio.
discussed this pretty in-depth 2 weeks ago, but again, this is just for the contingency of the cantilevered walkway where there's going to be 2 motions for the $95,000. Again, it's important to reiterate, what's not used will come back to the city. Ideally, we're hoping for none to be used. As the city planner said earlier, the smaller the contingency means the more drawn out the plans are, the better faith, the more faith we have in what the project is. So that will be my comments for both motions.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and that vote will begin with Councilor Hall.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika? Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
motion passes.
Thank you very much. From the docket of February 6, 2018, I move to transfer $95,000 from citywide other financing uses to account 2307H4-499000, Gateway City Parks Program, other financing sources to provide project contingency funding for the 10-mile cantilevered walkway.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order.
Last thing I will say is that this is an exciting project, which I think is really going to change downtown and give people more options in terms of getting around the city and taking advantage of our parks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
thank you, motion passes.
Thank you. From the supplemental docket of January 2nd, 2018, I move to rescind vote number 2 from the meeting of June 20th, 2017. Voted on roll call, 11 yeas, 0 nays, to repeal Attleboro Special Act and Act increasing the expenditure limit on revolving funds in the city of Attleboro.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order.
Who's second? I'm sorry.
Councilor Jackson.
Thank you.
This motion is housekeeping, and the next one is a follow-up of that housekeeping. Last year, this council accepted part of the Municipal Modernization Act to be able to specialize and really set our own limits on revolving funds, making this motion and the next motion actually obsolete.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding this motion? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote. That roll call vote will begin with Councilor Hall.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
Thank you. From the supplemental docket of January 2nd, 2018, I move to petition the general court to enact the following legislation to repeal an act increasing the expenditure limit on revolving funds in the city of Attleboro, sections 1-2 of chapter 116 of the acts of 2006, which the legislature may vary in form and substance within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition, and would request a waiving of the rest of the reading.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. Motion is in order.
Same comments as previous.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. This will require a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. And finally, from the supplemental docket of January 2nd, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to apply the library to expend approximately $5,000 in any future grant amendments from the ALCS, Association for Library Services for Children, to children rather, funded grant strengthening communities.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order.
Thank you. So this is a fantastic opportunity for us to continue to support the great work that Amy Ringlinger does in the library. This is going to allow her to do some more programs with the children, which is just outstanding, and she's very excited to get going. So,
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote. The roll call vote will begin with Councilor Hall.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you, President Cooper. That is all the business for budget and appropriations, and would call for a meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Councilor Dolan.
Reporting for License Committee from the docket of February 6, 2018. I move to approve the application for renewal 2018 scrap metal recycler junk dealer license for Polarized New England Company LLC, DBA Schnitzer Northeast, 136 Bacon Street, South Attleboro, Mass.
Second.
There we go.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Councilor Dolan.
I have no comments.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Just let the record show Mr. Delissio is not here.
That's right. Mr. Delissio was excused, so it's 10. Motion passes 10-0.
10-0.
Yep.
From the docket of February 6, 2018, I move to approve the application for renewal 2018 Class 2 license for B&C Auto Service, Robert J. Pedro, DBA B&C Auto Service, located at 21 South Ave, Attleboro, Mass, for 5 customer spaces and 5 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order.
I have no comments.
No comment. Okay. Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes 10-0. We are.
That's all the business I have for License Committee. I'd like to call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Okay. Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you, President Cooper. Reporting for city property and claims from the docket of February 6, 2018, I move to transfer $3,067.96 from account 11241000-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1610100-558330 Library Copiers regarding funds to purchase a replacement for the main copier in the library that is beyond repair.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Councilor Reynolds, any comment?
No, I do not.
Okay, this requires a voice vote. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 11-0.
From the docket of February 6, 2018, I move in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the donation of $250 in Stop and Shop food gift cards from an anonymous donor to the Health Department.
Second.
Motion, thank you. Motion is in order. Councilor Reynolds, any comment?
No, I have none.
This requires, any other questions or comments? This requires a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Motion passes 11-0. 0. Thank you.
That is all the business. I'm holding the third motion that I have. That's all the business I have from City Property and Claims this evening. But I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Great, thank you. Councilor Holmes.
Reporting from Personnel and Human Services Committee, from the docket of February 6, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $1,500 from park salary wages to account park professional services to add a second porta-john on Capron Park property and to add Beast Police services at the Judith J. Robbins Park.
Second.
We talked about this before. Any comments?
Any other comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote. The roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Kobus?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. DeLisio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of February 6, 2018, I move to confirm the appointments of Mayor Paul Harrell and Council President Mark Cooper as representatives of the city on the Sturgeon Memorial Hospital Board of Managers, term to expire December 2019.
Second.
Thank you.
President, please excuse me.
Yes.
This has been going on since March 3rd, 1915, so it's over 100 years. It's just tradition, and I think something we should all be in support of.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. Let the record reflect Councilor Conti has abstained from this vote. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes 10-0. Councilor.
From the docket of February 6, 2018, I move to approve the re-election of Deb Gould, residing at 386 South Washington Street, North Attleboro, Massachusetts, to the position of City Auditor, term to expire February 2020.
Second.
It was great having her here. I think it was really exciting to hear. She's obviously very passionate about the city, and I'm excited about bringing this forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote. That will begin with Councilor Hall.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. DeLisio?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. Kobus?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket.
Councilor Holmes, you just want to hold 1 second. Did Councilor Conti go in the back?
He went into the right,
Okay,
he went into the
perfect.
men's room.
Oh, you want me to-
Roll on.
okay. So from the docket of February 6, 2018, I move to approve the request of the mayor for 2 changes in the current approved rules and regulations of cities exempt group. The first would be an amendment to address the way sick leave is charged, and the second change would add Article, what is that? 22, sick leave bank. The article provides for the establishment of a sick leave bank for exempt employees as it exists for other employees.
Second.
Thank you. This is we're just making it even between non-exempt and exempt employees. Non-exempt employees are allowed to have the sick bank, and exempt employees right now cannot accrue that, but obviously everybody gets sick, so it's great that you can donate to the sick bank and be able to access it and use it, so.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote. That will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Kobus?
Yes.
Vice President Perica?
Yes.
Mr. DeLisio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Hall? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. And President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
This concludes the business for Personnel and Human Services Committee.
Call for a committee meeting next.
I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So there is no old business. There are item, Councilor Hall.
I'll make
I
it quick.
thought you didn't think you had anything. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I do have a couple of things.
Okay.
I have a number of votes. I was very, very busy this past week, and I have several votes that are going to come out at my next council meeting, so I just want to let folks know that that's going to happen. I got some stuff that I think I can move out. The question about the dog park, I'm going to take that out, and I did want to talk to you about the senior exemption, just so everybody knows, on February 12th, there will be a number of individuals over at the Council on Aging actually talking to the seniors about the circuit breaker program. So if you're interested in learning about that, Brian Lynch from the Department of Revenue is going to be there. So I am going to be there, and also maybe amending the vote that we have based on that information. The other thing is, I do have some information about the automobile rental license, which I'll bring out next time. Hawkers and peddlers, almost there. I am so close right now with hawkers and peddlers. I actually spoke to the solicitor, and we've come up with some, we'll have some language, I think, to be able to present and to take that motion out, hopefully. I think that's all I have, and thank you, and I look for a meeting at the next available time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
There is no old business, but there are some items of new business, and I'll first recognize Councilor Reynolds.
So, Council Cooper, for the first one that I have, because as it was before, the section 10-5-15 wasn't approved, but now it's been approved. So would I change that, amend that to just read, or would I leave it the same?
Leave it the way it is.
Read right now. Okay. So from the docket of February 20th, 2018, I move to refer the following matter to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation to insert as a new section, section 10-5-15 as follows. Section 10-5-15, to designate and maintain 4 standard size on-street parking spaces, 8 by 20 feet, along the curb line, and as close as possible, but not within the turnaround on Beagle Club Road, to be identified as parking spaces for Manchester Reservoir visitors. Sundown clause to be reviewed on October, whatever the date is that you determine, 2018.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Oh, sorry. So again, I asked the same question, Councilor Cooper, President Cooper, of the following matter. Is that still pertinent because of the one that was passed earlier this evening?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna, so let me see if there's any other comments, and then I'll tell you what I think we should do with the new business. I think it should be referred to the administration because it's part of the third piece and it's part of what was amended. So let's have any other discussion if there is any, and then we'll talk about the plan going forward. Any other comments about, did I answer your question?
I think you did. Do you want me to read it then as written, or do you want me to hold it?
No, so we're on the first one.
We're on the first one. Oh,
We're on the
yes, I'm
first
sorry,
one.
we have,
It was
yeah.
seconded by Councilor Hall.
Yes.
So let's,
No, Holmes.
no, Hall, I thought.
I thought it was Holmes.
No, it was Hall.
Was it Hall?
No, it wasn't. It was Councilor.
Okay, sorry.
Doing that, please.
It was
I'm asking
it really
again.
was.
Please stop barking orders at me. I'm getting it, but maybe I'm not as fast as everyone else, but I'm getting it. It was seconded by Councilor Hall. Thank you very much. The motion is in order. It was a new piece of new business. What we're voting on is to whether or not we want to accept this new business before the council. Let me be clear about my intention. It is my intention to refer this particular piece of new business to the administration and planning and land use. Is there any other question? Hearing none. Again, this requires a voice vote for the first piece of new business from Councilor Reynolds.
Can we have a,
Yes. Councilor Blair is requesting a roll call vote. That'll begin with Councilor Hall.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. So I am going to refer that to the administration and to the Planning and Land Use Department for study and recommendation. Councilor Reynolds.
From the docket of February 20th, 2018, I move to refer the following matter to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation, to remove the following relative to section 10-5.2A as follows. Beagle Club Road, both sides of the entire street, including the cul-de-sac through February 28th, 2018. Insert the following relative to section 10-5.2A as follows. Erect and maintain 2 signs which state "No parking allowed" between signs. These purposefully placed signs on Beagle Club Road should adequately deem the street's curb line area as a non-parking area, removing the need for the approximate 17 no parking signs currently in place. This area not to be inclusive of the 4 curb line spots proposed as parking spaces for Manchester Reservoir visitors. Sundown clause to be reviewed on October 2018.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. Any questions, comments about the new business?
Excuse me, how are you going to refer this?
Same way.
Okay.
Just as a point of, just as a point of clarification for this particular, I was just slightly confused about this. First of all, I never say no to new business being assigned anywhere, so I will support this to go wherever it's going. But if you could just be a little more clear, or just paint a picture a little bit better for me with this particular piece of business. So what this would do would allow 4 parking spots at the end of the cul-de-sac, or that other piece would, and then this piece would prohibit parking on the rest of the street.
That's the way it reads now, yes.
So
Any other questions? Hearing none, again, this requires a voice vote, but I'm certain Councilor Blair will ask for a roll call vote, so I'm going to just ask for the.
No,
No?
in
Okay.
of expediency.
All right, so we will have a voice, this requires a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 11 yeas, 0 nays. That will be referred to the administration and planning and land use for study and recommendation. Councilor Reynolds.
So President Cooper, based on the conversation we had this evening with Gary Arasian, I'd like to amend my own motion.
So
May I do that?
no, it's just to send it to, for
Right, but
committee for study and recommendation.
That's right, but I want to amend it as I wrote
Sure.
it. May I do that?
And I'll write that, I'll write.
And I wrote it down, okay.
Okay.
So, from the docket of February 20th, 2018, I move to refer the following matter to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation, and here President Cooper is the new. Further review in regards to the construction of a small parking lot, no more than 8 spaces, with adequate remote surveillance as proposed by the Attleboro Police Chief, to be located at the north side entrance of the Manchester Reservoir, entrance on Beagle Club Road.
Second.
So that is seconded by Councilor Delicio. Again, this requires a voice vote, but any discussion about the new business? Hearing none, this requires a voice vote, unless we want a roll call vote. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. 11 opposed? 11 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. This too will be referred to the administration and the Planning and Land Use Department for study and recommendation. Councilor Conti.
Hey, Mr. President, from the docket of February 20th, 2018, move to refer the following matter to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation. And in accord with the Attleboro Municipal Charter, Article 11, Section 11-5, reenactment and publication of ordinances, the municipal council shall cause to be prepared a proposed revision or recodification of all city ordinances which shall be submitted to the municipal council for reenactment. The municipal council shall adopt the proposed revisions or recodification with or without amendment prior to the expiration of the calendar year in which it's submitted to them. Such revisions or recodification shall be prepared under the supervision of the city solicitor or the municipal council, so directs by special counsel retained for that purpose.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. So I just have one clarifying question for you, Councilor Conti. Can you just, without amendment, prior to the expiration of the calendar year in which it is submitted to them? So if we were to get a amended ordinance after comprehensive review, we got that. Your motion is suggesting that within the year of receiving that, we codify. Is that what you're?
Yeah, what's going to happen, Mr. President, is that the city is probably going to contract with an outside firm, and the outside firm is going to digitize our ordinances and set them up in a digital language so that they're more readily searchable and more readily available. So the city of Taunton did this. They changed their ordinances to the term the code, and the code is all online, and the ease of searching for what you're looking for is stunning. And Mr. Erasian mentioned 3 years ago, I think, during a capital committee meeting, that the ordinances needed to be recodified, but he didn't have the money to do it at the time. So I'm entering it as new business to put it into the administration, just to add it into the budget queue, so that he can give us some consideration and do some search to see what it's going to cost to get it done. And if it proves to not be expensive enough now, fine, throw it into the capital improvement plan and let it be an item for a few years until it rises to the top. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Councilor Hall?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Conti, for bringing this in. Many times since I've had this, I've mentioned that uniformity. So I actually looked up what this meant, what these words meant, okay? And one of the, besides putting things in a digital format, makes it a whole lot easier to standardize your ordinances. And I've run across that already, looking at myself, and I've brought the same thing up about the measuring and so forth. And I think we're going to find a host of conflicts, if you would, between ordinance. The solicitor and I spoke about that today, some of the conflicts that you run up against. So I appreciate this new business, and I hope that we will come up with the money to do it. I think it's important, and it just looks like, makes us look like a more professional organization if we have very standardized ordinances, and it's a lot more helpful for our residents also. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. 11 yeas, 0 nays. Motion passes, and that, again, will be referred to the administration for study and recommendation to the council. So that is a wrap. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned 9:24.
Good meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, you all right? Oh my God. It was just my shoulder. Oh my God, I thought I ran over your foot. Jeez.
Mark.